Chapter 1. The Incident. Third Person's POV. Location. Gotham City. Date. January 4th. Time. 8:34 p.m. Like the intro song once said, Danny Fenton was just 14, when his parents built a very strange machine. It was designed to view a world unseen. When it didn't work, his folks, they just quit, but Danny went and took a look inside of it. That is when the intro song differed from reality, as Danny went inside the machine. Maddie Fenton, his mother, turned back to look towards it one last time. That's when she saw Danny inside of it. "Danny!" Maddie screamed, her voice raw with panic. Her sudden shout startled Danny, making him stumble backward. His elbow jabbed into a large, ominous button labeled, "On." The machine roared to life, trapping him inside a vortex of electricity and ghostly energy. A blinding flash of green light filled the room, bathing every surface in an otherworldly glow as Danny's molecules twisted and rearranged. "Ah!" Danny's scream pierced the air, a blood-curdling sound that echoed off the lab's concrete walls, chilling his parents to the core. "Danny!" Jack shouted, his voice thick with terror as he frantically dashed toward the machine. His hands flew across the control panel, slamming buttons in a desperate attempt to shut it down. But his panic-fueled strength only sent the machine into a chaotic frenzy, sparking uncontrollably as it spiraled out of control. Inside the machine, Danny's body was changing. His hair turned from raven black to a shocking white, and his eyes glowed a vivid, unnatural green. The pain was indescribable, every cell in his body splitting and reforming, caught in the violent grip of the unknown. A portal, swirling with a menacing green light, tore open near the machine, pulling everything within reach into its gaping maw. Jack clung to the edge of the control panel with one hand, while his other arm held onto Maddie, who was being sucked toward the portal. "Jack, our son." "Danny," Maddie shrieked, her voice barely audible over the roaring wind. "I know, Maddie, I know." Jack's voice cracked, his grip slipping as the suction intensified. Hearing the commotion from upstairs, Jazz, Danny's older sister, raced down into the lab. "Mom, Dad, what's happening?" She barely had a moment to register the scene before the powerful force of the portal seized her, hurling her toward her parents. She collided with Jack, and in an instant, all three of them were wrenched into the portal's depths. For a brief moment, the lab fell silent. The portal crackled shut, leaving the space empty, save for the faint image of a ghostly figure hovering in the air. Then, in a blinding flash, the machine exploded, sending a shockwave through the city. Danny was thrown from the machine, his body slamming against the wall with a bone-rattling impact as the ground shook from the eruption. Amidst the debris, a woman stood atop a cluttered workbench, swinging her legs casually, observing the boy with an intrigued, calculating gaze. She had pale, almost ethereal skin and long, raven hair that cascaded down her shoulders in soft waves. Her dark eyeliner emphasized her piercing eyes, and an intricate ankh pendant rested against her chest, glinting faintly in the green glow from the smoldering machine. As dust and fragments of the ceiling settled around her, the woman rose and moved gracefully toward Danny, kneeling beside his unconscious form. She extended a hand, her fingers barely grazing his forehead. "Marvelous," she whispered, studying him with an expression that mingled fascination and pity. "This boy, he walks perfectly between the realms of life and death. He's both, and neither." Her voice softened as her gaze lingered. "He's remembering his life before this one due to the fine line he walks. Such knowledge cannot be allowed to fall into the wrong hands." She hesitated, her expression turning grave. "Though I am forbidden from interfering, you fall within my domain, child," she murmured. "I will grant you this one gift." Her fingers traced an invisible line across his forehead. "May only you retain this memory, line walker. May you find the strength to endure this new path." Just then, her gaze shifted, sensing a presence approaching. She stood, casting a final glance at Danny before vanishing into thin air, as if she had never existed. A few minutes later, the door to the lab burst open, revealing a tall, imposing figure cloaked in black. The man's piercing eyes scanned the chaotic scene through the lenses of his mask, which glowed with an eerie white. This was Batman, Gotham's infamous Dark Knight. He tapped his earpiece as he surveyed the wreckage. "Robin, I've located the source of the seismic activity and the energy spike," he reported, his voice low and measured. With a tap on his cowl, Batman switched his vision to scan the room, his lenses flickering to a crimson hue. His gaze fell upon Danny's motionless body amidst the debris, and he narrowed his eyes, recognizing something unusual. He crouched down, pressing two fingers to Danny's neck. He's dead," he muttered, with a grim expression crossing his face. He always disliked finding children casualties. But as Batman began to reach for his communicator, a faint ring of light formed around Danny's waist. It split, one ring rising and the other falling, transforming him back into his human form. Batman paused, his eyes widening slightly behind his mask. His pulse, he was alive. Batman activated his earpiece again, his voice laced with curiosity. He knew Danny was dead, not to mention his transformation. He needed answers. Robin, prepare a space in the Batmobile. I'm bringing in a guest. A guest? Robin's voice crackled through the earpiece. You're not bringing a dead body in here, are you? Batman glanced back at Danny, a strange look in his eyes. No, he's not dead. Not anymore. Minutes later, Batman emerged from the lab, carrying Danny in his arms. Outside, Robin leaned against the Batmobile, waiting with a look of mild impatience that quickly turned to surprise upon seeing Danny. Danny. Robin blinked, his voice edged with concern. I know him, he's in a few of my classes. Batman gave a slight nod. Then perhaps you'll understand why this requires our immediate attention. Robin's expression grew somber as he peered at Danny's pale face. Do you think he'll be okay? Batman's voice was grave as he settled Danny into the Batmobile. That's what we're going to find out. Back down in the lab, due to the debris around, Batman failed to notice as the space between the machines suddenly began to spark briefly, almost as if rebooting himself. Chapter 2, Grieving. Third person's POV. Danny lay on a cold, steel bed deep in the Batcave, shifting and twisting as fragments of memories pulsed through his mind, painful, fractured memories colliding with the reality of his new state. His breathing became shallow as the last fragments hit, a relentless replay of what had happened in his parents' lab, followed by the haunting faces of his mother, father, and sister before they were all caught in the explosion. Suddenly, Danny's eyes shot open, a blazing, unnatural green illuminating the darkness around him. He shot upright on the bed with a scream, Mom! Dad! Jazz! His voice echoed through the cavern, laced with panic and heartbreak, tears streaming down his face. No, no, what have I done? Danny sobbed, clutching his chest as grief overtook him. I killed them. No, no, please, please no. His voice cracked, each cry filled with overwhelming regret. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. His fists tightened around the fabric of his shirt as he doubled over, a gut-wrenching scream escaping him. Before Batman and Robin could approach, a strange transformation began. Rings appeared and twisted around Danny, and his body slowly changed. His hair turned stark white, and his skin took on a ghostly pallor. His anguish fueled the shift, pushing him further into his ghost form. Tendrils of eerie, green energy flickered around his limbs, as if his very soul was flickering in and out of the physical world. Batman and Robin rushed forward, intent on restraining and calming him. Danny, listen to me, Batman commanded in his firm, grounding tone, placing a strong hand on Danny's shoulder. Robin moved to the other side, his own grip firm but steady. You're safe. Just take a breath. But Danny's fear, confusion, and raw strength in his new form were overwhelming. With a sudden burst of energy, he broke free from their grip, sending both Batman and Robin stumbling back. He shot up off the bed, his legs shifting into a spectral, ghostly tail, his whole lower body losing solidity as he became intangible. Panic clouded his mind, blinding him to his surroundings. No, no, I have to go, I have to see them. He shouted, his voice hollow yet filled with determination. Before they could reach for him again, Danny turned fully intangible, passing through walls and machinery in a desperate, frenzied escape. His form glowed brighter as he phased out of the Batcave and shot up into the night, heading for the place he once called home. Batman and Robin exchanged a quick glance. Did he just turn into a ghost? I'm not going crazy, right? Robin asked in surprise. We need to follow him, Batman said urgently. They moved to the Batmobile, tracking the unstable energy signal Danny left in his wake. Dash. Danny reached his family's home, now a skeletal shell of what it once was. The once sterile lab had been devastated, debris littering the floor, and the portal that had started it all flickered erratically with a dull green glow. He landed in the middle of the wreckage, his human form returning as his feet touched the ground, knees buckling as he sank onto the broken tiles. The silence of the shattered lab seemed to echo with memories of his family. Mom, Dad, Jazz, he choked out, his voice barely a whisper. His hands shook as he reached toward the portal, tears running down his cheeks. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, his voice broke, a deep sob tearing through him as he hunched over, clutching his arms. Please, come back, I didn't mean for any of this to happen. Danny's body trembled as he cried, staring into the portal as if it might miraculously bring his family back. I should have listened, it's all my fault. Unbeknownst to him, Batman and Robin had arrived, watching from the shadows. They waited, respecting the solemnity of the moment, until Danny's sobs grew softer. As he sat by the portal, his face buried in his knees, Batman finally approached, his footsteps quiet against the rubble. "Let me help you," Batman said gently. "I know this is hard, but I need you to tell me everything that happened here." Danny turned to face him, his eyes still glowing green but softened with vulnerability. His gaze shifted between Batman and Robin, unsure and broken. He nodded slowly, taking in a shaky breath. "Batman, Robin, if I weren't in so much pain right now, I'd probably be excited and fangirling to see them both." He swallowed hard. "My parents," Danny choked. "They were obsessed with ghosts, ghost hunters, practically made it their whole lives. They were the type who were scientifically brilliant but kinda lacking in common sense," he added with a sad smile. "They worked so hard on this portal, trying to make a gateway to a ghost dimension. It was everything to them, their life's work. If it worked, they'd finally succeed. If not, they'd have to give it up." Danny's lips began to quiver as he struggled to recount what happened next. Robin knelt beside him, placing a supportive hand on his shoulder. Taking a deep breath, Danny continued, "When they finished and activated the portal, it didn't work. They were devastated. Seeing them like that, I couldn't just stand by and do nothing. This was their dream, so I put on the jumpsuit." Danny went on to explain, detailing his mother's shout, the moment he hit the power button, the mind-numbing pain he felt, and the horror of watching his parents get sucked in and then seeing the explosion that followed. "That's when I blacked out." Tears streamed down his face as he sobbed. "This isn't like the cartoon, I hate this. I finally had a family, I remember them raising me, taking care of me, loving me, and then, bam, they're gone. It's not fair. I know I asked for a family, but not like this." Robin's face showed shock as he glanced at Batman, whose expression was solemn. "It's not your fault, all you wanted to do was make your parents happy. You were just doing what any kid would do, seeing their parents upset. Yeah, real happy they are now that they're in a million pieces," Danny scoffed bitterly, his anger directed at himself. Batman noticed this, and his own frown deepened as he saw Danny blaming himself. Memories stirred, of his own pain, his own guilt over his parents' deaths. "Trust me," Batman said quietly, "I know what you're going through. I know it's not what you want to hear, but it's the truth. There isn't a day that goes by that I don't blame myself for losing my parents. You're angry at the world for taking them away, and you're angry at yourself, thinking you're to blame. I want to help you so you don't carry this same self-hatred. I don't need help, I just want the pain to stop." "How do I make it go away?" Danny said, gritting his teeth in anger. "You don't," Batman replied, closing his eyes in understanding. "You simply learn to live with it." His voice calm but filled with empathy. "You can't change what happened, but you can honor their memory by how you live. Right now, you're lost, and that's okay. Let me help you find a way forward." Danny didn't say anything as he just stared ahead for a few minutes. He looked down, closed his eyes and nodded his head, as what Batman said was right, there is no changing what happened. Chapter 3, Code Name, Ghost Boy. Third Person's POV. Location, Gotham City Batcave. Date, January 4th. Time, 11:21 p.m. Danny found himself back in the Batcave, the cavernous expanse lit with the glow of computer screens and various high-tech gadgets. The atmosphere felt tense, yet alive, humming with the energy of countless hidden secrets. Despite the awe-inspiring surroundings, Danny was in the middle of yet another humiliating moment. Batman and Robin were off to the side, speaking in low, urgent tones when Danny's exasperated voice broke through. Guys, a little help here," he called out, his voice tinged with annoyance and desperation. Batman and Robin turned towards him, their sharp eyes widening slightly at the sight. Danny was halfway through the ground, his legs intangible and sunk into the floor while his upper body flailed helplessly. Again, Robin groaned, rushing forward with Batman to grab Danny under his arms. Together, they hauled him out, leaving his legs dangling awkwardly in the air. "Can you stop doing that?" Robin snapped, his tone laden with exasperation. "That's the 5th time this has happened since we got into the Batmobile. I had to hold on to you the entire ride. Just so you wouldn't fall through the seat." Danny scowled, his cheeks flushing slightly. "You think I want to be like this? I just got these powers today. Do you think there's a how to be a ghost 101 feet manual lying around. Focus, Batman said firmly, his deep voice cutting through the tension like a knife. Concentrate on your lower half. Picture it solidifying. Danny closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. He visualized his legs becoming tangible, willing them to materialize. For a moment, it seemed to work, his legs reappeared, solid and firm. See, that wasn't so, Robin began, but his words were cut off as Danny's arms turned intangible instead. He slipped out of their grasp and landed face first on the cold, metallic floor. There was a long silence. Danny stayed sprawled on the ground, groaning softly. This day just keeps getting better and better, he muttered, his voice muffled by the floor. Robin pinched the bridge of his nose, sighing. Just get up already. What's the point? Danny grumbled, rolling onto his back and staring up at the ceiling of the Batcave. I'll probably just fall through the floor again. Robin crouched next to him, his voice softening. It's not about how many times you fall. It's about how you pick yourself back up. Danny shot him a look, one eyebrow raised. God, that's cheesy. How did you manage to say that with a straight face? Robin smirked, standing up and offering Danny a hand. Cheesy or not, it got you off the ground, didn't it? Reluctantly, Danny took his hand and got to his feet. He clenched his fists and focused hard, his body stabilizing, at least for now. Well, lucky for you, it's Friday, Robin said with a grin. You've got the weekend to practice. Yay, Danny deadpanned, raising his fist weakly in mock enthusiasm. Robin turned to Batman, his expression growing serious. Are you sure about this? Batman gave a single, resolute nod. It's a gamble, but one worth taking. Robin sighed but nodded in agreement. Slowly, he reached for his mask while Batman pulled back his cowl. Danny's eyes widened as both of them revealed their faces to him. Sup, Danny, Robin, now Dick Grayson, said with a cheeky grin. Surprise. Danny blinked, staring at them with mild shock before letting out a tired sigh. Honestly, I'm too emotionally drained to feel anything right now. If this had been any other day, I'd probably be freaking out. Dick groaned, throwing his hands in the air. The one time I dramatically reveal my identity, and you're too tired to care. What a buzzkill. Batman, Bruce Wayne, intervened, his tone calm. You'll be staying here with us. I'll be training you to control your powers, and I saw no reason to keep our identities a secret from you. Danny nodded, his expression softening. Thank you, for trusting me. I promise I won't tell anyone. Your secret's safe with me. Dick crossed his arms, a smirk playing on his lips. Good, as long as we're clear. Don't make me regret it, Bruce added, his voice firm but not unkind. Danny nodded again. So, what's next? Training. Not tonight, Bruce said. Alfred will take you to your room. You need rest. We'll start fresh in the morning. As if summoned, Alfred appeared, descending the stairs with his usual composed grace. Master Daniel, your quarters are ready. Please, follow me. Danny offered a tired smile. Thanks, and just call me Danny. As Alfred led him through the sprawling halls of Wayne Manor, Danny couldn't help but marvel at the sheer opulence around him. Finally, they arrived at a large, elegant room. Alfred opened the door with a faint smile. This shall be your quarters. Do make yourself comfortable. Danny muttered a quiet thanks and stepped inside. The room was lavish, far too extravagant for someone who had spent most of their life in a modest home. He sat on the edge of the enormous bed, his gaze distant. As the silence enveloped him, the weight of the day finally hit. His lips quivered, and he gripped the bed tightly, tears welling up in his eyes. Outside, Alfred hesitated near the door, hearing the faint sound of sniffling. He raised a hand to knock but stopped himself. After a moment of deliberation, he sighed and walked away, leaving Danny to his solitude. Back in the Batcave, Dick turned to Bruce with a concerned expression. He's really struggling. I mean, losing your parents and sister in one day, it's a lot. Bruce placed a hand on Dick's shoulder. He needs support. Someone close to his age who understands what he's going through. Be that for him. Dick nodded solemnly. Don't worry, I'll look out for him. Then his expression brightened slightly. Still, he can turn into a ghost. That's kinda cool. I can't wait to see what else he can do. Bruce returned to his computer. Supercomputer, create a new file. Code name, Ghost Boy. Record, intangibility, invisibility, flight, and transformation between forms. Weaknesses, unknown. Further testing required. Dick shook his head, muttering under his breath. You really are ruthless. Bruce said nothing, his focus already back on the screen. Chapter 4, 5 Push-Ups. Third person's POV. Danny was laying in bed tucked away in a blanket while deep in thought, unable to sleep. It is crazy to think I was reincarnated. Is that the right term? Into this world. Much less with the powers from a cartoon show I used to watch as a kid. Problem though, I barely remember anything from the show since, after all, like I said, it was from since I was little kid. Danny simply stared at the ceiling as his mind wanders off. This world, I know it's DC if Batman wasn't an obvious answer to the question, but what confuses me the most is the memories. I have two best friends here, Tucker and Sam. Just like in the TV show, I remember everything, like us meeting in 2nd grade, becoming best friends, going to each other's houses, all of it. So is this world a combination between Danny Phantom and DC? Danny's mind went through many twists and turns as he tried to make sense of it all, but it was too much, not to mention he was truly mentally exhausted from his morning. His eyes began to grow heavy and soon fell asleep. Ellipsis. The next day in the Batcave. Danny had his arms upwards with his legs spread apart. I'm going ghost. Quote. Bruce, Robin, and Alfred all just stared at Danny as he stood awkwardly, with a faint blush growing on his cheeks. PHTTT, ha 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 ha. What was that? Robin laughed loudly, pointing towards him. My battle cry, Danny muttered, a bit embarrassed. How did you do it the first time you switched between your transformation? Bruce asked with a curious expression. Danny shrugged. I don't know, it was mostly instinct. I just knew I had to go see my parents and just charged ahead. Bruce nodded. All right then, surrender your body to instinct, let it come naturally to you like breathing. Bruce said as he began to instruct Danny. Easier said than done, he muttered, but still tried to comply with Bruce's orders. He closed his eyes and spread his arms. He took a deep breath and tried to relax his body. Transform, Danny said, commanding his body with his will. Slowly a line appeared between vertical in front of him before it split into two, going side to side. Danny's appearance began to change. He went from having black messy hair to pure silver white. His clothing began to disappear as his clothing changed to a black and white jumpsuit with the letter D on his chest. As he opened his eyes, they turned from a bright blue to a glowing green color. Cool, Robin smirked as he looked at the transformation. I see, you invert, Bruce muttered as he nodded. I do what now? You basically flip over to the other side. Your eyes and hair, they're the inverted color of their natural state. So it isn't unfair to assume that the same thing goes on with your existence. You are able to invert your state of being both alive and dead. Although this is mostly a theory, more things need to be tested for it to be a conclusive statement. Bruce explained his thoughts on the matter. He really is a ghost, Alfred muttered in a state of shock. Now show us what you are able to do, Bruce said, motioning towards a training zone off to the side of the Batcave. Danny slowly began to rise from the ground unsteadily and flew towards a few mannequins in the shape of villains. If I remember correctly, Danny thought as he clenched his fist tightly. He concentrated on his hands, which suddenly began to glow a green aura, making Bruce gain an intrigued expression. Danny thrusted his fist forwards, which sent forth a small green ghost ray from his fist. And as it made contact, it created a green explosion that sent the mannequin flying back, smashing strongly against the wall. Smoke was rising from his hands as they all just stared in shock. Danny blew on his fist and gained a brief smile. Oh yeah, I'm so going to love this. Danny flew through the training course. He would turn invisible with some difficulty, fly though, people, and objects, and move around dodging projectiles thrown his face. Danny then went and punched one of the mannequins, which caused it to shatter upon impact. Bruce had a contemplative expression as he analyzed everything he had witnessed. It seems your ghost form has some additional abilities than what we have believed. Your ghost form seems to give you an enhanced physique, making you faster, stronger, agile, not to mention that blast you produced earlier. I call it my ghost ray, Danny said as his fist glowed faintly before powering down. Dude, we will need to talk about your terrible naming sense, Dick said, shaking his head in disappointment. Transformed back, Bruce ordered. Danny nodded and a ring formed around his waist, splitting up and down as he turned human. However, Danny failed to consider he was still levitating, which caused him to fall face first on the floor with a thud. Quote. Wow, Danny cried out in a muffled voice. Apart from training your ghost power, I believe the most important part to train is your living body. As your body grows strong, so will your abilities, as they are linked together. I will come up with a strict training regime that you will have to follow in order to master your body, both living and dead, Bruce informed him. Dick just looked at Danny up and now and noticed his scrawny arms and physical body. You, my friend, have a lot of work to do, and trust me when I say, it's going to hurt. Thanks, I feel much more confident in my journey ahead due to your encouraging words, Danny said with a plain expression. He's right, you have a long journey ahead, Bruce said as he shifted towards the supercomputer. Danny turned towards Alfred as he asked, are they both always so discouraging? Master Daniel, you don't know the half of it, Alfred sighed with a defeated expression. So what's the most push-ups you can do? Dick asked curiously. 100, Danny answered with a serious expression. Dick simply raised an eyebrow as if asking, really? Quote. 5, Danny muttered with an embarrassed expression, unable to look at Dick in the eyes. You are more hopeless than I thought, try to see if you can do more now that you have received your powers, Dick said curiously. Danny nodded and got into a push-up position, but before he started, Dick interrupted. First off, your posture is just plain wrong. Here you go like this. Dick began correcting and fixing Danny's form, and once he was ready Danny began. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 inches, Danny grunted as his arms began to shake. 6. Danny plopped to the ground gasping for air. Look at that, it seems gaining these ghost powers really did help me out, Danny said, proud of himself. Quote. I don't have any words for you, that was honestly so pathetic, Dick sighed and shook his head in disappointment. I tried my best, Danny muttered. Chapter 5, Condolences. Third person's POV. Location, Gotham City Batcave. Date, January 6. Time, 11:12 a.m. Danny stood on a treadmill in his human form, running in place. His breaths came hard and fast, his chest rising and falling as he exhaled deeply through his mouth. The rhythmic hum of the treadmill blended with the soft sounds of his sneakers striking the belt. Sweat dripped from his forehead, trickling down his temples as he pushed himself to keep going. When the treadmill beeped, signaling the end of his session, Danny slowed to a stop, stumbling slightly as he stepped off. He bent over, resting his hands on his knees, gasping for air. What's next? He managed to ask between breaths, glancing up at Bruce Wayne, who stood stoically in front of him, his arms crossed. Bruce's expression was calm, his tone measured. Next, you'll be sparring with Dick. You're not at your peak yet, but it's important to start building your combat experience early. Danny straightened up, wiping his face with the back of his hand. Ghost or no ghost? He asked, flexing his fingers and clenching his fists experimentally. Both, Bruce replied. His voice carried an edge of authority as he elaborated. You need to train both your human body and your spectral form. Mastery over both will ensure that if you ever lose access to one, you won't be defenseless. But for now, no ghost, just your human form. Take 5 minutes to recover. Danny nodded, his expression shifting to one of determination. 5 minutes later, Dick Grayson appeared, dressed in casual sparring clothes, a playful grin on his face as he stretched his arms. Bruce turned to Dick, his tone sharp. Don't go easy on him. Teach him what you've learned, but make him earn it. Dick rolled his shoulders and smirked. Got it, he said, cracking his knuckles as he sized Danny up. Begin, Bruce commanded. Without hesitation, Dick lunged at Danny. Don't let your enemies strike first, he warned as he swung a punch. To both Dick and Bruce's surprise, Danny reacted instinctively. He raised his forearm, deflecting the punch, and countered with a quick jab to Dick's cheek. Dick staggered back, a hand on his face. How? He muttered, more stunned than hurt. Bruce's eyes narrowed, and his voice was firm. I told you not to go easy on him. I wasn't, Dick protested, rubbing his cheek. But seriously, Bruce shifted his focus to Danny. That punch, it looked practiced. Where did you learn that? Danny glanced at his fist, a shadow of sadness crossing his face. My mom, he admitted quietly. She's a 9th-degree black belt. She taught me how to throw a proper punch when I was little, trying to get me into karate. I lost interest back then. Looking back, I think she was trying to bond with me, and I didn't appreciate it. Now, I wish I'd learned more from her. Wait, seriously? Dick asked, raising an eyebrow. Danny chuckled softly. Yeah, she thought it'd help if she ever ran into a ghost. Bruce's gaze remained analytical, but he gave a small nod. Continue. Dick frowned, his posture shifting into a more defensive stance. I won't underestimate you now. Please do, Danny quipped, his smirk returning. The two clashed again, with Dick dominating the exchanges. However, Bruce watched closely as Danny kept getting back up each time he fell, the boy's resolve unwavering. Each time, Danny lasted a little longer, his movements becoming sharper, his counters more deliberate. After 20 minutes, Danny managed to swat away one of Dick's punches, duck under a high kick, and launch a counterattack. Though Dick easily blocked it, the effort Danny put forth made Bruce raise an eyebrow. He's a fast learner, Bruce thought, rubbing his chin. A small smile tugged at his lips. Could I have found another genius like Dick? That remains to be seen. Still, it might have something to do with his heritage. Bruce's mind wandered briefly as he recalled his research. Jack Fenton, a genius inventor who focused obsessively on ghosts, to the point of being dismissed by the scientific community. He even approached Wayne Enterprises once, only to be rejected for his ectoplasmic theories. And Maddie Fenton, a brilliant scientist and a 9th-degree black belt by her teenage years. Together, they founded Fenton Works. Danny inherited their intelligence and their strength, though whether he can reach their potential remains to be seen. An hour later, Danny was on one knee, his body trembling, his breath ragged. Sweat dripped from his brow as he used a fist for support. He looked up at Bruce with a tired but determined gaze. Bruce's voice broke the silence. Now turn into a ghost and spar again. This time, control your strength against Dick. Dick raised an eyebrow. Why should he get to go easy on me while I can't go easy on him? Because if he doesn't control his strength, Bruce said bluntly, he could put a hole through you. Ah, right, Dick muttered, rolling his eyes. A guy who could barely do 5 push-ups now gets super strength. Talk about unfair. Danny smirked as his eyes glowed an eerie green. I'm going ghost, he announced. In a flash of light, 2 glowing rings appeared around him, transforming him into his spectral form. He rose to his feet, his posture more confident, his grin widening. This is going to be fun. Dick smirked back. You'll have to hit me first. Danny charged forward, his fist cocked back. But as he swung, Dick grabbed his arm, twisted, and slammed him onto the mat with practiced ease. Having fun now? Dick teased, grinning. Danny grumbled, flipping back onto his feet. I'm just getting started. He lunged forward again, his green eyes burning with determination as the sparring continued. Ellipsis. Location: Gotham City, Wayne Manor. Date: January 7th. Time: 7:15 a.m. Do you remember the story if anybody asks you anything? Dick asked, descending the staircase with a school bag slung over his shoulder. He was dressed neatly in Gotham Academy's uniform, the crisp fabric looking impeccable as always. Trailing behind him was Danny Fenton, also wearing the school uniform, though he fidgeted with the tie as if it were choking him. A bag hung lazily over his shoulder, and his expression was a mixture of exhaustion and mild annoyance. Yeah, don't worry, Danny muttered, rolling his eyes. I remember. My parents caught Bruce Wayne's interest with one of their inventions. Just as he was about to become one of their investors, the accident happened. Bruce Wayne took pity on me since he was getting to know my parents and decided to take me in for the time being. Dick glanced over his shoulder and smirked. Good, you've got the details down. Danny sighed. You've only made me recite it, like, 10 times. I think I've got it memorized. Just making sure, Dick said with a shrug as they stepped outside. Waiting by the limo was Alfred Pennyworth, his ever-composed demeanor unshaken by the brisk Gotham morning. He stood beside the open car door, giving them a polite nod as they approached. Master Richard, Master Daniel, Alfred greeted warmly. Morning, Alfred, Dick replied, stepping into the car. Yeah, morning, Danny mumbled, giving a slight bow, climbing in after Dick. Ellipsis. Location: Gotham Academy. Date: January 7th. Time: 7:43 a.m. Outside the gates of Gotham Academy, Tucker Foley stood nervously, his dark skin glistening slightly in the morning sun. He adjusted his glasses, fiddled with the brim of his red backward cap, and scanned the area anxiously. Beside him, Sam Manson, her raven black hair framing her pale face, tapped her combat boots against the ground, her black eyeliner smudged slightly from her restless night. Where's Danny? Sam muttered, her voice edged with concern. Her green eyes darted to every passing student, but none of them were the boy they were waiting for. Tucker sighed, tugging at the strap of his backpack. I don't know, Sam. He hasn't answered his phone, and that's not like him. I'm starting to get worried. A sleek black limo pulled up to the curb nearby, but neither of them paid it any attention. They were too focused on the sidewalk, hoping to catch sight of their best friend. When the limo door opened, and Dick Grayson stepped out, they barely glanced at him. However, when Danny Fenton emerged after him, their heads snapped toward his voice as though on a swivel. Thanks, Alfred, Dick said, giving a polite wave to the driver. Yeah, Alfred, thanks for the ride, Danny added as he shut the door behind him. His voice sounded light, but there was an undertone of weariness. Hearing Danny's voice, Sam and Tucker's eyes widened with relief. Without a second thought, they ran toward him, tears already welling up. "Danny!" they shouted, their voices echoing over the murmurs of other students. They ignored the curious stares and closed the distance in seconds, tackling their friend into a crushing hug. Danny suppressed a wince as their embrace pressed against the bruises hidden beneath his clothes. Still, he sighed and wrapped his arms around them in return. Watching the scene, Dick gave Danny a small nod before turning to leave, giving the trio their space. "We heard what happened," Sam said, her voice trembling as tears spilled down her cheeks, streaking her eyeliner. "We tried calling you, but you didn't answer," Tucker exclaimed, his own eyes glassy with emotion. "We were so worried, man." Danny swallowed hard, forcing back the lump in his throat. "I'm sorry, guys. I didn't mean to worry you. I just needed some time alone." Sam sniffled, her arms tightening around him. "We get it. Just don't shut us out again, okay?" "Yeah, we're your friends," Tucker added, his voice softer now. "We're here for you." Danny gave them a small smile, his resolve hardening as he realized how much he needed them. "Thanks, guys. I mean it. The three of them made their way toward the school's entrance. Sam was busy wiping the smudged makeup from her cheeks with her fingers. "Hold up," she said, veering toward the girls' restroom. "I need to fix this mess." As Sam disappeared, Danny and Tucker lingered by the hallway. That's when Baxter, the school's resident bully, approached them. His blonde hair was slicked back, and his blue eyes carried an unusual solemnity. "Hey, Fenton," said, his voice devoid of its usual bravado. Danny sighed, already exhausted. "Not now, I'm not in the mood." Held up his hands in an uncharacteristically gentle gesture. "I know, man, I wanted to say I'm sorry. Your sister, Jazz, she was a good person. She helped me a lot when I was struggling with some stuff. I didn't really get a chance to say it before, but I'm sorry for your loss." Danny blinked, stunned into silence. Gave him a firm pat on the shoulder before walking away, leaving both Danny and Tucker standing there, slack-jawed. "Okay, what was that?" Tucker finally said, his voice a mix of shock and disbelief. Danny shook his head slowly. "I have no idea. Guess he's not a total jerk after all." Tucker shuddered dramatically. Still, that was weird. So unnatural. Before they could say more, Sam returned, looking more composed. "What's with the weird looks?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. Just gave me his condolences," Danny replied, still processing the encounter. "I didn't think he had any to give." Sam shivered at the thought. "Good thing I missed it. That sounds creepy." The three of them chuckled softly, the moment breaking the tension as they headed toward their classroom together, their friendship providing the strength Danny needed to face the day. Chapter 6, Overpricing. Third person's POV. Location: Fenton Works. Date: January 14th. Time: 12:20 p.m. Batman stood before the giant portal that had caused Danny's mutation, his cape billowing slightly in the ventilation breeze. In his hands was an energy signature device, its screen glowing faintly in the dim light. His sharp eyes scanned the readings with precision. "Ectoplasm," Batman muttered, narrowing his eyes. His voice was low, tinged with intrigue and caution. A new element to take into consideration. The screen blinked violently, and the energy readings spiked off the charts. His eyebrows furrowed as the portal began to shimmer and pulse with renewed intensity. Suddenly, the unstable vortex solidified, spiraling into life with a roar of displaced air. Batman instinctively dropped into a defensive stance, his cape billowing as his hands hovered over his utility belt. From the swirling green portal, a head poked out, a wizened old woman with green skin, her hair tied in a loose bun under a fishnet shawl. She peered around curiously, her ethereal form glowing faintly. "Hello, dear," the ghostly woman said softly, her voice almost grandmotherly. "What are you doing here?" Batman's jaw tightened, his stance unwavering as he scrutinized her with suspicion. "I could ask you the same," he replied, his gravelly voice laced with authority. "Oh, you know," the ghost said nonchalantly, waving a translucent hand. "Saw an opening and thought I'd poke my head in." She suddenly perked up, her eyes widening with delight as she turned her gaze to the side. "Oh, my stars, it's lunchtime." Before Batman could react, she darted forward, phasing effortlessly through the wall. "Wait," he barked, lunging to intercept her, but his hands grasped nothing but air as she vanished from sight. Damn it, he muttered under his breath, sprinting up the stairs toward the rooftop. Reaching it, he saw the ghostly figure already far in the distance. Clicking his tongue in annoyance, Batman activated his communicator. Location: Gotham Academy. Date: January 14th. Time: 12:25 p.m. Danny stood in the cafeteria line, a lunch tray in his hands, his shoulders slouched from exhaustion. Behind him was Sam, and Tucker stood just ahead. Danny's muscles ached from the grueling training session the day before, making even holding the tray a challenge. Tucker sighed, fishing a crumpled $5 bill from his pocket. Man, all this can get me is a chicken sandwich. Talk about a school built for the rich. What are you talking about? Sam chimed in. The vegan options are pretty affordable. Tucker gave her a deadpan look. Do I look like a vegan? Danny yawned, trying to shake off his fatigue. Don't worry, Tucker, I'll cover it. Bruce gave me an allowance. Tucker's eyes lit up. Really? Wow, I almost forgot. Look at you, living the high life now. He nudged Danny playfully as the line moved forward. Danny shook his head with a small smile. Not really. If I blow it all, Bruce won't give me any more for the week. He's trying to teach me how to manage money. Sam grinned. Imagine that. Billionaire playboy Bruce Wayne teaching life lessons. Tucker smirked. If only he taught you how to score with the ladies, huh? Danny chuckled, shaking his head. Now that's a lesson I wouldn't mind. Don't be gross, Sam scoffed, rolling her eyes. Reaching the counter, Danny paid for Tucker's meal. Sam declined his offer to pay for hers, insisting she had it covered. They grabbed their food and headed for a table, but Danny stopped abruptly, his breath visible in a faint, icy blue wisp. His eyes widened in alarm. The lunch lady ghost popped her head through the ceiling of the cafeteria and looked around with interest. She looked at menu and her eyes nearly popped out of her head. I have to use the bathroom. Here, hold this, don't eat it, Danny said, handing his lunch towards Tucker and rushing out of the cafeteria, which earned him weird looks by both staff and students. What the hell am I looking at? The lunch lady exclaimed, as Danny ran out, looking at the menu. The lunch lady ghost's shrill voice echoed across the cafeteria, freezing everyone in their tracks. Her spectral form fully materialized as she hovered near the lunch counter, glaring at the menu with bulging, fiery green eyes. Her yellow-gloved arms shook with indignation as she read aloud, her voice growing louder with each word. Gourmet options for the rich. And what about for those that can't afford to eat? This is an outrage, she roared, her aura flaring bright green as the entire cafeteria seemed to shudder with her anger. Is that a ghost? One student stammered, clutching their tray. She's real. Run, screamed another, bolting from their seat. The lunch lady's fury intensified as she glared at the plates and trays spread out across the room. How dare they treat food, my food, this way? Such disrespect, such injustice. Lunch is a meal everyone should enjoy. Zero. With a dramatic wave of her arm, she shouted, Rise, my delicious children. Teach these ingrates a lesson. At her command, chaos erupted. The food on every tray began to move, twitching and writhing unnaturally. Sandwiches sprang to life, flapping their bread-like wings. Bowls of soup boiled over, sending steaming streams of broth snaking across tables like serpents. Slices of pizza shot into the air like frisbees, zooming around and narrowly missing students' heads. Screams filled the cafeteria as students scrambled to dodge the rampaging food. Tucker dropped Danny's tray in panic as Danny's mashed potatoes morphed into a gooey, sentient blob that launched itself at his face. Help, it's in my hair, Tucker yelled, flailing wildly. Sam grabbed a napkin dispenser and started swatting at the flying pizza slices. This is exactly why I don't eat processed food, she shouted, ducking as a rogue apple pie splattered against the wall behind her. Dick Grayson crouched low beneath a cafeteria table, his sharp eyes fixed on the exit. His mind raced as he observed the chaos unfolding around him. His lips pressed into a thin line, but his thoughts betrayed his calm exterior. Did he sense her? He wondered, his gaze darting to Danny's retreating figure. The realization hit him hard, and his eyes widened. That idiot, he doesn't have any field experience. Danny Fenton faced the door of the cramped stall. He took a deep breath, his lips curling into a sly smirk. I'm going ghost, he muttered. A bright white ring appeared around his waist, glowing like molten energy as it began to split, traveling in opposite directions. As it passed over his body, his everyday clothes transformed into sleek black and white spandex emblazoned with a bold D on his chest. His once black hair turned stark white, and when he opened his eyes, they gleamed with an intense, ghostly green light. He let out a small chuckle, finding the situation amusing. If only my first official transformation wasn't in a bathroom cubicle. But hey, beggars can't be choosers. Without wasting another second, Danny phased through the stall, his body becoming intangible as he flew out of the bathroom and straight back into the cafeteria. Location: Gotham Academy Cafeteria. Chaos had erupted in the cafeteria. Students screamed and scrambled for cover as the ghostly lunch lady hovered in midair, her hands glowing with a fierce, green energy. Tables and trays had been overturned, and food splattered across the walls as the ghost ranted about the injustice of overpriced cafeteria meals. Danny streaked into the room, his fist cocked back. "Hey, lunch lady," he called, his voice cutting through the noise like a blade. The ghost spun to face him, her eyes narrowing in fury. Danny grinned. "Here's a menu just for you, a knuckle sandwich." With a burst of speed, his fist connected with the lunch lady's face, sending her flying backward through the air. Pow! She tumbled end over end before catching herself, her glowing green aura flaring brighter with rage. From his spot under the table, Dick pinched the bridge of his nose and groaned in frustration. That was so cringe." Not only did he announce his presence during a sneak attack, but he actually said, "Knuckle sandwich." He shook his head. "This is painful to watch." The lunch lady straightened herself in the air, her expression twisting into a snarl. "Don't try to stop me, ghost boy. Just like they've put a price on food that should be for everyone, they will pay." She raised her hands, and the green energy around them intensified. The entire cafeteria trembled as trays, plates, and piles of discarded food levitated into the air, merging into a monstrous creation. With a guttural roar, the creature took shape, a grotesque, towering amalgamation of various foods, its body dripping with slime-like gravy and mashed potatoes, its arms made of slabs of meat and bread. "Ruar!" The food monster bellowed, sending globs of slimy food flying in all directions. The students and staff who hadn't already fled screamed in terror, cowering behind overturned tables. "What are you all still doing here? Run while I distract it!" Danny shouted, hovering in midair and glaring at the crowd like they were idiots. But Danny had made a rookie mistake. Rule number 1 of a fight: never take your eyes off the enemy. The food monster's massive arms swung like a battering ram, slamming into Danny with the force of a freight train. He was sent hurtling across the room, crashing into the wall with a deafening crunch. Dust and rubble rained down as his body was buried beneath the debris. The monster turned its glowing green eyes back to the cowering students, preparing to attack. Suddenly, the rubble exploded outward as Danny surged forward, tackling the creature away from the crowd. His fists glowed with ectoplasmic energy as he landed blow after blow. "Go!" he roared at the onlookers, his voice filled with urgency. A small cut appeared on his lip, but instead of blood, a bright green ectoplasmic glow seeped from the wound. At the cafeteria doors, Dick sprang into action, throwing them open wide. "Everyone out! Follow me!" he barked, his voice commanding and sharp. The crowd didn't need to be told twice. They bolted for the exit, sparing only a few nervous glances back as they saw Danny darting through the air, blasting green rays from his hands. The cafeteria looked like a war zone, with trays and food splattering everywhere as Danny weaved through the monster's attacks. He twisted his torso at impossible angles, dodging a barrage of nacho ninja stars. When a mass of mashed potatoes came hurtling toward him, he turned intangible, letting the goo pass harmlessly through his body. In retaliation, he charged a glowing green blast in his hands and fired it directly at the creature's torso, punching a gaping hole through its stomach. For a moment, Danny hovered in the air, catching his breath. Then the hole reformed, the creature regenerating in seconds. Danny groaned, slumping slightly in midair. Of course it regenerates. Why can't ghost fights ever be simple? And why does this have to happen during my lunch break? He cracked his knuckles, green energy sparking between his fingers as he prepared for round 2. Chapter 7, Lunch Lady Ghost. Third person's POV. The food monster's grotesque arms, made entirely of mashed potatoes and gravy, extended unnaturally as it grabbed one of the cafeteria tables. With surprising strength, it swung the table like a baseball bat, hurling it toward Danny. Reacting in the nick of time, Danny turned intangible, letting the table pass harmlessly through him before it crashed into the cafeteria's food counter, sending trays, utensils, and a wave of soup flying. Danny raised a hand, his tone laced with sarcasm. "You know, I might not be old enough to be a taxpayer myself, but that's still coming out of their wallets." Could you at least try to respect school property? The food monster let out a low, guttural roar as Danny sank into the tiled floor, narrowly avoiding a massive swinging arm made of spaghetti. They could use the money they stole from those hungry children then. Lunch is supposed to be a reward after a hard day of work, it's not a reward if you have to pay for it. The lunch lady retorted. Danny re-emerged from the floor, appearing to the side of the monster. With a quick motion, he extended his arm and fired a glowing green ectoplasmic ray at its legs. The blast disintegrated the creature's lower half, leaving it teetering precariously on stubby, uneven remains. I hate to be that guy, Danny quipped, hovering just out of reach, but this is a private school. Of course they charge for lunch. They're using high-quality ingredients. It's way better than the rubbery mystery meat you'd get at public schools. Ignoring his words, the lunch lady roared again, driving the monster forward. Danny darted toward its torso, his fist glowing with fiery green energy. With a swift punch, he struck the creature dead center. The monster exploded in a splatter of goo and food, scattering into dozens of smaller, wriggling versions of itself. Oh, great, Danny muttered, his voice dripping with exasperation as he began blasting the miniature creatures one by one with rapid ecto-rays. The lunch lady, floating in the air with ghostly menace, glared at Danny with burning hatred. Her fists glowed a sickly green as she shouted, "You dare interfere with my justice." She unleashed a powerful ghost ray, its eerie glow illuminating the cafeteria. Caught off guard, Danny took the full brunt of the blast and was sent hurtling across the room, crashing hard onto the floor. Groaning, he quickly rolled to his feet just in time to dodge another ray, which scorched the tiles and left a charred crater. Well, Danny grunted as he shook off the impact, I guess it's time to end this. He floated upward, his legs transforming into his ghostly tail, undulating gracefully in the air as he sped toward her. The lunch lady fired ray after ray, but Danny weaved through them with ease, his silver-white hair streaking behind him. In an instant, he was in front of her, swinging his glowing fist toward her face. She dodged with surprising agility, countering with a punch of her own. The two engaged in a furious mid-air brawl, trading blows and evading strikes with supernatural speed. Breaking the stalemate, Danny shot upward and brought his foot down in a powerful kick that sent the lunch lady crashing to the ground. She let out a ghostly screech as she hit the floor, creating a small crater. Hovering above her, Danny brought his hands together, forming a massive, crackling ectoplasmic sphere between his palms. And here's dessert just for you, a plate full of justice. Danny shouted, hurling the sphere downward. It struck the lunch lady with a deafening explosion, the energy dispersing in a bright flash. When the light faded, the lunch lady lay unconscious amidst the rubble. The cafeteria returned to normal as the cursed food dissolved into harmless leftovers. Danny then covered his face as he was embarrassed. Did I really just say that? My God, I'm so glad no one was here to see that. However, realization quickly hit Danny as he looked down towards the lunch lady. I don't have the Fenton thermos. Danny thought, wanting to punch himself due to his stupidity of not carrying it with him now that he was Danny Phantom. Just as Danny was planning on carrying her off back toward the portal with his hands, he heard someone clear their throat. Looking up, Danny saw Batman stepping out of the shadows. Here, I thought you might need something. Batman reached to his utility belt and threw a silver and green thermos, which Danny caught with one hand. How did? Before Danny could finish his sentence, Batman answered, I saw it heading towards your general direction, thus I figured it must be drawn to you somehow. I had called Robin to inform me if she appeared here. I collected that while I investigating your parents' lab and thought it could be useful. Danny nodded and aimed it towards the lunch lady, pressing the button which unleashed a powerful suction as it absorbed the ghost inside the thermos, which he capped and tossed it back towards Batman. Batman tossed it back. Keep for today, we don't know if more might appeared. Danny nodded. He looked down at the thermos with a faint blush as he asked, Did you hear me earlier? Batman just remained stoic and didn't answer his question before he turned around and walked back into the shadow, but not before saying, although a lot could be improved on and you've made a lot of careless mistake, good work. Danny smiled before looking up only to see Batman was gone. Danny began to sway side to side with a big smile. Batman just complimented me, he tilde. Ellipsis. Outside the school, Sam paced near the school in trance, her worry etched across her face. Danny's still in there, he could be hurt, she exclaimed, trying to push past the staff blocking the doorway. Tucker was right behind her, equally determined. I'm sorry, but we can't let you go in. One of the staff members insisted, holding up a hand to stop them. But Danny, What about me? A familiar voice chimed in. Sam and Tucker turned to see Danny casually strolling toward them, looking perfectly fine. His book bag hung over one shoulder, and he held a slice of pizza in his hand, mid-bite. His trademark smirk was firmly in place. Danny! Sam and Tucker shouted in unison, their relief evident. Tucker jumped forward, talking a mile a minute. Dude, you missed it. There was this huge ghost in the cafeteria. There was food, and it was throwing tables, total chaos. And then, Tucker went on a tangent to explain what happened while Danny was in the bathroom. Which he ended with, your parents would have gone bonkers seeing that a ghost really attacked. Tucker slapped his mouth and looked worried he said too much. Sam jabbed Tucker in the ribs with her elbow, hissing, way to go, Tuck. Danny, however, just looked down at his pizza with a wistful smile. Nah, it's okay, he said quietly. Then, with a small laugh, he added, you're not wrong. My parents would have totally freaked out seeing a ghost attack the school. Sam and Tucker exchanged a cautious look before Danny glanced back up at them, his expression lighthearted again. Seriously, though, you don't have to tiptoe around me about my parents. It's fine. Honestly, it's kind of funny when you think about how my dad would have gone full ghost hunter mode and made things even crazier. His easygoing tone finally eased their tension. Sam and Tucker let out a collective sigh of relief, grateful Danny seemed to be taking everything in stride. Location, Wayne Manor. Date, January 14th. Time, 8:15 p.m. The grand dining room of Wayne Manor was quiet, save for the clinking of silverware. Danny sat at the table with Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson, enjoying a formal dinner. The long table stretched between them, but the casual banter filled the space. Danny grinned toward Dick, his pride barely contained. You should have seen me earlier. I was totally kicking butt. That ghost didn't stand a chance. Dick leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms with a smirk. Oh, I saw, all right. You called out mid-fight like a total rookie, basically announcing your position to the whole room. Real pro move. What are you talking about? That was intentional, Danny countered with confidence. His tone and expression were so genuine that Dick blinked, caught off guard. Wait, you meant to do that? Dick asked, narrowing his eyes. Yeah, I needed to divert her attention away from everyone else and focus it on me. It was better her targeting me than anyone else, Danny explained with a shrug, as though it were the simplest decision in the world. Bruce raised an eyebrow, his sharp eyes studying Danny. He didn't comment, but there was a flicker of approval in his expression. Before the conversation could continue, Alfred entered the room with a rolling dessert cart. There was a mischievous glint in his eye. I have prepared dessert for everyone, Alfred announced, his tone polite yet teasing. He placed a plate in front of Danny with deliberate precision. And for you, young Master Daniel, a plate full of justice. Danny froze, his eyes widening in shock. His cheeks flushed a deep red as he whipped his head toward Bruce, who was pointedly looking away, his shoulders trembling with suppressed laughter. You did hear me, and you told Alfred, Danny exclaimed, mortified. Dick's brow furrowed in confusion before realization struck. He pieced the events together and burst into laughter. No way, you actually said that, a plate full of justice. Oh, man, that's gold. He pointed at Danny, laughing so hard he nearly fell out of his chair. Danny slumped in his seat, his face a bright shade of crimson. He glared at the dessert plate in front of him, groaning. I'm never going to live this down. Chapter 8, Danny Phantom. Third person's POV. Location, Fenton Works. Date, January 14th. Time, 11:36 p.m. Danny stood in front of the swirling ghost portal, its eerie green light casting long shadows across the darkened lab. The air hummed with energy, and the faint sound of distant wailing seemed to echo from within its depths. He gripped the Fenton thermos tightly in his hand, the metal cool against his skin, and aimed it at the portal. Pressing the expel button, he braced himself as the device hummed to life. The lunch lady ghost shrieked as she was launched from the thermos and hurled into the portal's swirling vortex. Her cries faded as she vanished into the green abyss. Danny quickly stepped forward, closing the portal with a sharp press of the controls. Silence fell, save for the soft hum of the deactivated machinery. For a moment, he stood there, staring at the thermos in his hands. His thumb traced the smooth curve of its surface absent-mindedly, his mind elsewhere. A firm hand on his shoulder jolted him from his thoughts. Startled, he turned to see Batman standing behind him, his imposing figure framed by the dim light of the lab. Go rest for tonight, Batman said in his deep, authoritative voice. Tomorrow, you'll join Robin and me on patrol. Danny blinked in surprise. Seriously? He asked, raising an eyebrow. Isn't it a little early? I've only been training and studying for a week. I thought it'd be at least a month before I went on an actual patrol with you guys. You won't be jumping into the thick of it, Batman replied, his tone calm but firm. You'll be shadowing us, observing how we operate. This is an opportunity to gain experience. Normally, yes, it would take longer. But your unique powers give you an edge. Don't expect anything too intense. It's a standard patrol. Danny nodded, his expression serious. But inside, he was buzzing with excitement. Patrolling with Batman and Robin. It was a dream come true. He fought to keep a grin from spreading across his face. Ellipsis. Location: Batcave. Date: January 15th. Time: 6:01 p.m. Danny sat cross-legged on the ground in his ghost form, the faint glow of ectoplasmic energy surrounding him like a flickering aura. He focused intently on the green energy coalescing around his fists, the power shifting and twisting as he practiced shaping it. Robin leaned against a nearby railing, arms crossed, watching with mild curiosity. All right, he began, breaking the silence, I think enough time has passed for me to ask, have you thought of a hero name yet? Danny smirked, his glowing green eyes meeting Robin's. He tightened his fist, causing the energy to flare briefly. Yeah, he said, a hint of pride in his voice. I've got one. Robin raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Well, don't keep us in suspense. Even Batman, busy at the Batcomputer, turned his head slightly, curious to hear what Danny had come up with. It's Danny Fenton. Robin felt the corner of his lip twitch. Are you being for real right now? Danny rolled his eyes. No, I'm going to be serious tomorrow, he said sarcastically. Yes, I'm serious. Danny Fenton technically died the day I became half ghost. Fenton became Phantom. It fits. Plus, Danny is a super common name. No one's going to connect it to me. And let's not forget, he gestured to his glowing green eyes and white hair, I look completely different. Robin looked towards Batman, please do something about him, he seems to be serious about this. Before Batman could respond, Danny jumped back in. Look, you've got a ton of superhero friends, right? I bet some of them have identities so obvious that no one even bothers to question them. Am I wrong? Batman's mind immediately went to one name. Clark. Narrowing his eyes, he addressed Danny directly. Why are you so set on this name? Danny pointed to his chest, where his ghostly emblem glowed faintly. What am I supposed to say this D stands for? Definitely not a ghost, he joked before his expression turned serious. Anyway, there are a lot of reasons, Danny began. I don't want people to be scared of me, well, at least the people who matter. I want them to know who I really am, not just some superhero name. It's also a connection to who I am, half human, half ghost. Danny for being alive, Phantom for being, well, dead. Besides, I'm a ghost. Who's going to question whether I have a secret identity? What kind of secret identity does a dead person with a visible face even have? It's not like anyone would be out there trying to figure it out. Danny explained, laying out his reasoning. Robin blinked, processing the explanation. I don't, what do I even say to that? Those are some fair points, he muttered, glancing toward Batman for help. Batman's eyes narrowed slightly in thought as he weighed the pros and cons. And if someone figures it out? They won't, Danny said confidently, grinning. Because I can do this. Suddenly, his green ectoplasmic energy flared to life around him. He closed his eyes, concentrating with a determined expression that quickly contorted into something resembling constipation. Then, with a faint pop, a second nose materialized on his forehead. Quote. PHTTT, Robin quickly covered his mouth. You can grow a second nose. How frightening, Robin said, fighting for his life, trying not laugh. PHTT, ha ha ha, now no one would be able to tell who you truly are. What a wonderful disguise. I'm sorry, I just can't look at you right now. He turned away, still shaking with laughter. Danny's face burned with embarrassment. He wanted to disappear, and then he remembered he could. Without a word, he vanished from sight. Batman tilted his head slightly and addressed the empty air. What exactly were you trying to do? I was trying to duplicate myself, Danny's voice echoed, laced with mortification. I know I can do it, I just don't have enough mastery of my abilities yet. Batman nodded in understanding, stroking his chin thoughtfully. Very well, he said finally. You can be Danny Phantom. Yes, Danny reappeared, pumping his fist in excitement. Robin, having regained his composure, looked at Batman with skepticism. "You're sure about this?" Batman nodded. "I'll develop contingency plans in case his identity is ever compromised." Robin frowned. "You don't usually take risks like this. Why allow it now?" Batman's tone softened as he answered. "The name we choose, or that's given to us, for our mission defines who we are. It's more than just a mask or title. Take me, for example. I chose the name Batman because I embody the traits of a creature of the night. It represents who I am. Danny chose his name to represent what he embodies, part life, part ghost. I'm simply respecting his choice." "I see," Robin muttered, looking downwards at his own hands and clenching them into a fist. "I chose Robin because that's the name my mother used to call me when she was alive, and because I wanted to be a hero like Robin Hood, fighting against crime and corruption, never swerving from the path of righteousness," he reminded himself. "I think I get it." Robin nodded. He let out a sigh and scratched his head before he turned towards Danny. "I guess welcome aboard Danny Phantom Tilda." Chapter 9, Unseen and Unknown. Third person's POV. Location: Gotham City. Date: January 15th. Time: 6:30 p.m. Danny stood on the edge of a Gotham rooftop, his exposed ghostly skin unaffected by the cold January wind. Beside him stood Robin, all confident smirks and quick movements, and Batman, the Dark Knight himself, cloaked in an aura of intimidation that made the air feel heavier. "This is quite literally the best day of my life," Danny thought, trying not to grin too widely. Internally, he was a mess of excitement, practically vibrating with the sheer thrill of standing alongside two of his childhood heroes. "Let's move," Batman ordered, his voice low and commanding. Without hesitation, he shot a grappling hook toward a distant rooftop and disappeared into the shadows as he swung away. Robin followed seamlessly, flipping into the air with the practiced ease of an acrobat. Danny grinned as his feet shimmered into a ghostly green tail. Rising effortlessly into the air, he flew after them, his form glowing faintly in the dim light of Gotham's overcast afternoon. The sky was a blanket of gray, and though it was early in the day, the sun was nowhere to be seen. Perhaps due to the season where the sun sets earlier, Gotham's perpetual gloom gave them perfect cover as they leapt, swung, and glided from rooftop to rooftop. Below them, the city was alive with its usual chaos, sirens, distant shouts, and the ever-present hum of danger lurking in every shadow. As they moved, Batman and Robin shared brief, pointed observations, passing wisdom to their newest companion. "Look for patterns in the movement below," Batman explained, his eyes scanning the streets. "Crowds shifting suddenly could mean something's about to go down. Watch the windows," Robin added, his gravelly tone cutting through the wind. "Sometimes the threat isn't on the ground." Danny soaked it all in, nodding eagerly. It didn't take long for Gotham to live up to its reputation. "Stop right there. Freeze." The shout came from below, sharp and commanding. All three stopped, crouching at the edge of the rooftop. Danny peered down, his glowing green eyes taking in the scene. Two officers were pursuing a man who was sprinting toward a dark alley, desperation in every movement. "The first step is to assess the situation," Robin murmured, gesturing toward the scene below. "This guy's clearly trying to evade arrest." The man vaulted over a trash bin, ducking into the narrow alley to lose his pursuers. Batman's gaze followed him, calculating. "Think you can handle this one?" he asked without turning, his voice calm but expectant. Danny puffed out his chest slightly, grinning. "Leave it to me, boss man." Before they could respond, Danny vanished from view in an instant as he turned invisible, diving into the alley. He zipped past the man, invisible, and stopped ahead of him. When the criminal climbed over a rusted chain-link fence, landing heavily on the other side, Danny let his invisibility drop. "Boo!" Danny exclaimed, his voice echoing unnaturally as he raised his hands above his head. The man yelped in terror, scrambling back and reaching for a gun at his waist. "Ah, ah," Danny quipped, firing a blast of ectoplasmic energy that knocked the weapon from the man's hands. Another shot hit the man square in the chest, sending him sprawling into the fence with a metallic clang. Groaning, the man blinked up at Danny, his eyes widening at the sight of Danny's ghostly tail and glowing form. A ghost." Danny floated closer, letting his glowing green eyes narrow. "That's right," he said, his voice dripping with mock menace. "And if you don't turn yourself in, I'll make sure you regret it. Ever had a ghost haunt your every waking moment? Want to find out what that's like?" No, the man stammered, trembling. I can't go back to prison." Danny smirked. "If you can't do the time, don't do the crime," he quipped. Grabbing the man by his collar, he hoisted him into the air, floating effortlessly back over the fence. He deposited the criminal unceremoniously at the feet of the two stunned officers. Both officers raised their guns immediately, their hands trembling as they stared at Danny. Freeze. One of them stuttered. Danny raised his hands innocently, his smirk never fading. What are you? The other officer demanded, his voice shaky. Danny chuckled, letting his form flicker in and out of view. A cool thing Danny had learned from his practice is that his natural voice has a slight ghostly echo to it. Me. I'm just the phantom that haunts Gotham, he said, his voice echoing eerily. With that, he vanished completely, leaving the officers to stare at each other in wide-eyed disbelief. As the officers began cuffing the man, one muttered to his partner, "What the hell is going on in this city? First the guy in the bat suit, then his weird sidekick, and now, a ghost." High above, Danny reappeared beside Batman and Robin, a proud grin on his face. "So," he asked, "how'd I do?" "You overdid it," Batman said flatly, his tone cutting. "Revealing yourself was unnecessary. You could have subdued him silently. Instead, you gave him a chance to fight back." Danny frowned, crossing his arms. "How am I supposed to make them fear me if I don't show myself?" Batman paused mid-step, turning to face Danny. His shadowed expression made the temperature seem to drop even further. "Fear," he repeated, his voice low and measured. "Yeah," Danny said with a sheepish smile. "Like you do. Villains are scared of you. They think twice before crossing the line because they don't want you showing up." "I want that." Batman's jaw tightened, his gaze darkening. "Don't," he said after a long pause. "Don't try to be like me." His voice softened, but the weight of his words lingered. "Be better." Danny blinked, his earlier confidence ebbing away as the three moved off into the Gotham night. Robin let out a quiet sigh but decided to stay out of the conversation, as he knew all too well. Danny bit back the urge to roll his eyes. "Sure, be better," he says, like that's not some tall order. "Still doesn't tell me how." After a few moments of silence, Batman finally spoke again. "By becoming unseen." Danny tilted his head, confused. "Unseen. Fear doesn't come from what people can see," Batman said. "It comes from what they can't. The unknown, the unseen, what they don't understand, that's what terrifies them. You have an advantage. Use your ghost powers. Stay in the shadows, strike without warning, and vanish before they realize what happened. If you're too flashy, always putting yourself out in the open, it won't work. Fear takes time to build. It won't happen instantly, but if you learn to embody the unseen, it will grow." Danny listened, the gears in his head turning. Batman's words weren't exactly comforting, but they gave him something to think about. "Unseen, huh," he muttered to himself. "Guess I can work with that." Robin finally interjected, though not to join the conversation but to issue a sharp warning. "There's a group breaking into that house," he said, his tone serious. Batman and Danny turned their attention to the direction Robin was pointing. 6 men, each wearing black masks, were smashing their way through the door of a darkened home. The house was eerily silent, its lights off, giving the impression its inhabitants were either asleep or absent. Batman assessed the situation swiftly and then spoke in his usual commanding tone. "Robin, Danny, this will be a lesson in teamwork. Take them down together." Robin and Danny exchanged determined nods. Without hesitation, Robin leapt from the rooftop, flipping gracefully in midair before firing his grappling hook. The line connected to the adjacent building, allowing him to swing through an open door with practiced ease. Danny, in stark contrast, simply floated forward. His form shimmered slightly before he phased cleanly through the wall of the home, his ghostly abilities making him nearly undetectable. Inside the house, the masked intruders moved with clumsy urgency, rummaging through drawers and overturning furniture. Robin struck first, tossing a smoke bomb onto the ground. Thick gray smoke erupted, enveloping the room and reducing visibility to near zero. "Hee hee hee, ha ha." Robin's eerie, high-pitched laughter echoed through the haze, sending chills down even Danny's spine. Danny's brow furrowed as he paused midair, momentarily distracted by Robin's unsettling cackle. "What the heck is that?" he wondered, unnerved, but there was no time to dwell on it. He dove through the smoke, landing silently behind one of the masked men, who was frantically swinging his weapon in the air. "It's the Bat," one of them yelled, panic in his voice. "And his creepy sidekick," another added. "I told you idiots this was a bad idea. Just hit whatever's in front of you." The man's sentence was cut short as Danny slammed a fist into his gut, dropping him like a sack of bricks. Robin darted through the smoke like a phantom himself, his movements swift and fluid. He delivered a spinning kick to another intruder, sending him crashing through a rickety table with a loud crack. His laughter rang out again, high-pitched and maniacal. Danny, still unnerved, decided to try a different approach. Spotting one of the men gripping a metal bat, he flew into him, overshadowing the criminal. The man froze for a moment, his eyes glowing an unnatural green as Danny took control. "What are you doing, Frank?" one of the others shouted, but the possessed man didn't respond. Instead, he swung his bat with alarming precision, knocking one of his comrades unconscious. Then, in a final, self-inflicted act, he turned the bat on himself just as Danny exited his body. The man crumpled to the floor, out cold. Robin, meanwhile, handled the last two intruders. Grabbing them by their collars, he smashed their heads together with a loud thud just as the smoke cleared. The room was a mess of overturned furniture, groaning bodies, and scattered loot. Danny turned to Robin, his expression a mix of confusion and mild horror. "What the hell was that?" he asked, gesturing vaguely toward Robin. Robin smirked, adjusting his gloves. "I could ask you the same thing. I knew you could possess people, but seeing it in action, that's something else." Danny scoffed. "Dude, I'm a ghost. Possessing people is, like, my thing. That creepy laugh of yours, though. Nothing about that is normal." Robin shrugged, his grin widening. "I like to keep things interesting." The two finished tying up the intruders, securing them for the authorities. As they worked, Danny suddenly grabbed Robin by the shoulders. "What are you?" Robin started, but his question was cut short as Danny turned them both intangible. Robin let out a startled yelp as they phased through the wall, reappearing on the rooftop where Batman waited. Robin stumbled slightly, glaring at Danny. "You can make other people intangible too. You could have warned me. I thought I was about to be splattered against that wall." Danny shrugged. I like to keep things interesting," he replied with a smirk, mimicking Robin's earlier words. Batman stepped forward, surveying the scene below. He gave a curt nod of approval. "Better," he said simply before moving toward the edge of the rooftop. "GCPD is on their way. Let's keep going." The trio spent the rest of the night patrolling Gotham, taking down thugs and disarming criminals. With each encounter, Danny improved, his movements became stealthier, his tactics sharper. By the time the clock struck past 11, even Robin had to admit that Danny was holding his own. Finally, Batman called for an end to their patrol. "It's a school night," he said, his tone brooking no argument. Danny glanced at the sky and grinned. "I think curfew's going to have to wait a bit," he said, pointing upward. Robin and Batman followed his gaze to the glowing bat signal lighting up the clouds. Batman sighed, his cape billowing as he turned. "Let's go. We'll call it a night after this." As they moved across the rooftops, Danny floated beside Robin. "I'm totally getting one of those," he said, nodding toward the signal. Robin gave him an amused look. "Yeah, sure, people will light it up when they're being haunted by a ghost." Danny paused, considering it. No, that's not a bad idea." Robin snorted. "I was joking, but yeah, it's kind of brilliant. Just don't forget to credit me when you patent it." The two boys chuckled as they followed Batman into the night. Ahead of them, Batman allowed himself the faintest of smiles, listening to the sound of their laughter. Chapter 10, Solomon Grundy 1. Third person's POV. Jim Gordon stood on the rooftop of the Gotham City Police Department, his trench coat whipping around him in the chill night air. The sky above was dark and foreboding, clouds hiding even the faintest trace of the moon. The only illumination came from the massive bat signal, a glowing beacon casting a pale light from the concrete rooftop, cutting through the gloom of the city. With narrowed eyes, Gordon scanned the shadows, awaiting the arrival of Batman. It was an old ritual by now. He called, Batman came. Simple, reliable, but tonight, something felt off. A prickling chill crept down his neck, the kind that comes when you're being watched. Slowly, Gordon turned his head, and what he saw nearly made him jump. There, emerging from the darkness, were two pairs of glowing white eyes, one set sharp and intimidating, the unmistakable gaze of Batman. The other, smaller but equally piercing, belonged to Robin, perched just behind the Dark Knight. But it wasn't them that caused Gordon's heartbeat to skip. Floating slightly above the ground beside Batman was something else entirely. A third pair of eyes stared at him. These glowed a ghostly, eerie green. They hovered in the air, seemingly disembodied at first, but as Gordon's eyes adjusted, he saw the figure attached to them. A pale-skinned boy with white hair and a black and white suit, a spectral green tail wiggling slightly where his legs should have been. He floated effortlessly, arms hanging lazily in front of him as if completely at ease. Gordon blinked, rubbed his eyes, then lifted his glasses and pinched the bridge of his nose. "Okay, Jim, you've been working too hard," he muttered. "When I open my eyes, that ghost kid better be gone. Just a trick of the light, or maybe sleep deprivation." But when Gordon opened his eyes again, the boy was still there, floating casually with a small, almost mischievous smile. He lifted a hand and waved cheerfully. "Hi there." Gordon let out a long, tired sigh, the kind only decades of dealing with Gotham's insanity could produce. His gaze shifted to Batman, voice deadpan. "Batman, what is this?" The boy frowned, clearly offended. "This has a name, you know." Batman, of course, remained as stoic and unshakable as ever. His deep voice rumbled, steady as stone. "He's under my protection now. I've taken him on as an ally. His name is Danny Fenton, at your service, Commissioner Gordon." Danny chirped, saluting with 2 fingers and a bright grin. Gordon squinted at the boy, processing the situation, or trying to. His mind, wired to accept Batman's usual theatrics, was having trouble with this one. He looked back at Batman, mouthing silently, "Is he dead?" Batman's expression remained unreadable. "His situation is complicated." Then, with his usual tendency to dismiss questions he didn't want to answer, he continued, "Why did you call us?" Gordon exhaled deeply, deciding, for now, to ignore the floating ghost boy and focus on the matter at hand. "Fine, we've got a situation," he began grimly, crossing his arms as he paced. "An abandoned factory on the outskirts of Gotham. Normally, I wouldn't call you about squatters, but this is different. Solomon Grundy is involved." Robin tensed immediately, stepping forward. "Grundy, what's he doing there?" Gordon stopped pacing, his expression dark. "The place used to be a steelworks plant, shut down years ago. But recently, we've had reports of strange activity, loud crashes, heavy machinery, strange lights at night. My officers went to investigate, and they barely made it out alive. Grundy's moved in, and he's not alone. There's a gang running operations there, drugs, weapons, something big, and they're using Grundy as their muscle." Batman's eyes narrowed behind the cowl. "They've convinced him it's his territory." "Exactly," Gordon confirmed. "They've fed him some story that the factory is his home. Anyone who steps foot near it, enemy. Grundy's been chasing off or nearly crushing anyone who gets too close." He turned, his voice hard. "I'm not sending more men in there just to get hurt. Grundy's too much for them to handle. That's why I called you." Batman nodded curtly. "We'll handle it." Gordon gave them the address, but as he glanced at his watch, something occurred to him. "Now, before you go, about that ghost kid." But when he looked up, the rooftop was empty. Batman, Robin, and the ghostly boy were gone. Gordon threw up his hands, exasperated. "How does he do that?" I looked away for 1 second. Unbeknownst to him, Danny had turned both Batman and Robin invisible and flown them swiftly into the night. Dash dash dash. They reappeared on a nearby rooftop, Batman's cape rippling as his boots hit the ground. Robin landed in a practiced roll, while Danny hovered above them, grinning with pride as he phased back into view. His skills were improving, and tonight was already shaping up to be something exciting. The Batmobile roared to life, responding instantly to Batman's remote command. As they climbed inside, Robin and Batman began filling Danny in. Batman's voice was low, gravelly. "Solomon Grundy's story is one of tragedy. He was once Cyrus Gold, a man from the 19th century, murdered and dumped in Slaughter Swamp." Robin leaned forward, and then, decades later, his body reanimated. Now he's Solomon Grundy, an undead powerhouse. Super strong, almost impossible to kill. Danny's eyes widened slightly. "So, why's he called Solomon Grundy?" "Because that's the only name he remembers," Batman said, eyes fixed on the road. "It's tied to an old nursery rhyme. Born on a Monday, it's all that's left of who he was." Robin sighed. "He's not a bad guy, really. Grundy's confused, manipulated easily. He's like a child. People use him because of that." "All right, I think I got the gist of the situation now," Danny said as he was shifted to the side due to a wild turn. After a pause Danny said, "And to think, my first day of patrol I will have to fight an undead, talk about a irony." Robin snorted. "At least it's not Halloween. That's when the real freaks come out." The Batmobile screeched to a halt, silent as a predator as it approached the steelworks factory. Batman turned to face them, voice commanding. "Danny, Robin, your job is to locate and disable the gang. Take down their operations. I'll deal with Grundy. Danny opened his mouth to say something, however it appeared that Batman had already anticipated Danny's interjection. Don't question it. I'll be trying to calm Grundy down. Grundy is simply too strong for you to handle right now. You've only just started to master your abilities after all, Batman said before he gave them their final orders. Once you two are done taking down and apprehending everyone and you see that I am still engaging with Grundy, that's when you'll be allowed to intervene. Do I make myself clear? Robin and Danny exchanged a glance before nodding in unison. Understood. With that, Batman exited the vehicle, his cape billowing ominously. Robin leapt out next, flipping effortlessly onto the ground. Danny hovered beside them. Let's do this, Danny muttered, his grin sharp and eager as they launched into action, since it was his first real Batman mission. He might as well make it memorable. Chapter 11, Solomon Grundy 2. Third person's POV. A chilling, childlike laugh echoed throughout the abandoned factory. Hee 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 hee. The men inside immediately raised their weapons, their eyes darting around nervously. Who's there? One of them shouted, his flashlight sweeping across the room. The beam caught a fleeting shadow on the wall, and chaos erupted. Bullets ricocheted as the guards fired wildly. But as they unleashed their panic, the overhead lights began to shatter one by one, plunging the factory into creeping darkness. Flashlights flickered to life as the guards tried to regain control, but the laughter grew louder, reverberating from every direction. The men tightened their grips on their weapons, their breaths quick and shallow. Robin, perched silently on the second-floor rafters, observed the chaos. With a swift, silent leap, he landed behind a guard who was shining his flashlight at the ground. Crouching low, Robin crept closer. Before the man could react, Robin clamped a hand over his mouth, disarmed him in one fluid motion, and knocked him out cold. Using his grappling hook, he shot upward and disappeared into the shadows, already seeking his next target. Meanwhile, Danny hovered unseen, observing a group of 3 guards moving cautiously through the darkened factory. Possessing one of them, Danny spoke with a trembling voice, "WW, what is that?" The other 2 guards spun around, their weapons and flashlights aimed in the direction of where Danny was pointing. What are you talking about?" Danny smirked through his borrowed vessel and grabbed their heads, slamming them together with a resounding crack. Both men crumpled to the floor, unconscious. Danny floated out of his host, leaving the possessed guard dazed, then delivered a quick punch to knock him out as well. Invisible again, Danny flew through the air, hearing the heavy steps of reinforcements running above. Positioning himself below the group, he pressed his hands to the ceiling and concentrated. Ah! Came the screams as the floor above turned intangible. The guards tumbled down in a chaotic heap, groaning as they hit the ground. Danny charged his fingers with ghostly energy, firing non-lethal blasts to knock them out. "Everyone, gather around," one of the remaining guards shouted. "They're picking us off one by one. Stay together." The remaining guards regrouped, forming a tight circle as they descended the stairs, their weapons and flashlights pointed in all directions. "Call for Grundy." "Yeah, this has to be Batman. Let Grundy deal with him." Their plan was short-lived. Small metal spheres skittered across the floor, landing at their feet. A second later, tear gas erupted from the devices, enveloping the guards in choking clouds. A mocking voice echoed out of the smoke. "Idiots, Tilda, now I don't even have to hunt you down. Thanks for making my job easier." Robin leapt into the fray, a gas mask strapped to his face and a metal bow staff in hand. With calculated precision, he began dismantling the group one by one in the smoke-filled chaos, which was filled with sounds of coughing, grunting and weapons firing. While Robin handled the main group, Danny focused on clearing the remaining rooms. He phased his head through a nearby wall, spotting a man with a gun aimed at the door, ready to fire. Behind him, a group of frightened women huddled together. They were wearing face masks and had gloves on. Danny suspected they were the ones who configured the drugs. Danny pulled back, assessing the situation. Moving silently to the man's blind spot, Danny phased his hands through the wall and grabbed him. Before the guard could react, Danny slammed him repeatedly into the wall until he collapsed. The women screamed in fear as Danny phased into the room, hands raised in an attempt to calm them down. Unfortunately, his sudden appearance only made them scream louder. "Shish, shish, it's okay, it's all okay, you're going to be fine," Danny said in what he hoped was a reassuring tone. The women, though still uneasy, began to calm down as they noticed Danny's youthful appearance. He was just a kid. Danny rubbed the back of his neck awkwardly. He stammered, clearly trying to find the right words. This was new territory for him. Everything's going to be over soon. Just stay here and don't open the door for anyone. Even if they say they're Girl Scouts. Especially them. Those girls appear sweet trying to sell you cookies, but those girls are bloodsuckers. They would suck you dry of every cent you have. The women stared at him, confused by his odd comment. Danny's face reddened, and he quickly disappeared through the wall into the next room, muttering under his breath. Few of the women couldn't help but chuckle despite their situation, Danny's antics offering a moment of levity. Danny continued moving room to room, systematically taking out any remaining guards. By the time he was done, Robin's voice crackled through his earpiece. "Phantom, I've cleared my end." "You?" Danny tapped his earpiece. "Just finished. I was about to check if there's an underground floor, CRKKT, over." A brief pause. Then, "Did you just make a static sound with your mouth?" "No, must be these faulty earpieces." "Over," Danny replied, feigning innocence. "These are the latest models," Robin deadpanned. "Made personally by Batman. I wonder how he'd feel if I told him you called them faulty." "Snitch," Danny muttered, clicking his tongue. Robin sighed. "Anyway, come get me. Checking the basement is a good idea." What was that?" "Over," Danny teased. "I said come get me. The basement's a good place to check." "Still not catching that." "Over." Robin's voice turned flat. "Are you just doing this to say, over?" "To say what?" "Over," Danny replied, a smirk tugging at his lips. Robin groaned. "Fine, come get me, over." "There we go," Danny said, suddenly appearing above Robin. Landing gracefully, he looked him over and noticed a few small cuts. Danny grabbed Robin's shoulders, mock concern on his face. "Were they too much for you, bird boy?" Robin scoffed. "They pulled out knives after I disarmed their firearms. I for one, can't turn intangible." The duo made their way down to the basement, the air growing colder as they descended. The moment they stepped into the dimly lit storage room, their eyes fell on stacks of cocaine packets and other drugs, neatly packed and ready for distribution. "Well, this looks promising," Danny muttered. Bang! Arg! Danny cried out as a bullet tore through his arm, green ectoplasmic goo spraying from the wound. Robin reacted instantly, tackling Danny to the ground and rolling them behind a metal shelf for cover. A barrage of bullets riddled the space they had just been standing in, perforating Robin's cape with multiple holes. "I got one," a voice shouted triumphantly. "Good, keep firing," another barked. Robin crouched low, eyes scanning the room. "Let me see," he said urgently, motioning to Danny's arm. Danny winced but held out his arm, revealing the gaping hole in his bicep oozing green ectoplasm. "It's fine," Danny grunted, his voice strained. "It's not as bad as it looks." Robin scowled. "You've got a hole in your arm, Danny. That qualifies as bad." Robin pulled a berderang from his belt and hurled it toward the gunman. The berderang exploded on one of the cocaine packets, filling the area with a thick white mist. The gunfire ceased momentarily as the attackers struggled to regain visibility. Wasting no time, Robin grabbed Danny and carried him to a safer spot behind a stack of crates. Kneeling beside Danny, Robin reached into his utility belt to grab medical supplies, but Danny stopped him with an outstretched hand. "Wait," Danny said through gritted teeth. Robin paused as Danny grabbed his injured arm tightly, biting his lip in concentration. A faint green glow emanated from the wound as ectoplasm from within and around the injury began to coalesce, trembling as it slowly pulled together to seal the hole. Robin watched, stunned. "What the hell are you doing?" he whispered, his eyes darting to the shadows as the sound of reloading echoed around them. Danny exhaled shakily, beads of sweat forming on his forehead. "I can manipulate ectoplasm, remember? Since I'm basically made of the stuff, I can use it to heal myself, but it takes a lot." Whoosh! A white ring of light appeared around Danny's waist, splitting into two as one ring moved upward and the other downward. In seconds, Danny Phantom was gone, leaving Danny Fenton in his place. "Out of me," Danny finished weakly, slumping against the crates. "Well, darn." Robin stared at him, his expression equal parts disbelief and exasperation. "You're kidding me." Luckily, Danny had anticipated this kind of situation. A black domino mask concealed his eyes, but it didn't make their predicament much better. "This is bad," Robin muttered, his mind racing as the sounds of boots and muffled voices approached. Danny forced a shaky smile. Understatement of the year. Robin rolled his eyes, pulling out another berderang. "Stay down and let me handle this. Try not to get shot again, you are now made out of flesh and blood, not green goo." "No promises," Danny mumbled, reaching for a nearby piece of metal as an improvised weapon. Chapter 12, Solomon Grundy 3. Third person's POV. All right, stay here, Robin ordered in a hushed tone. I'll try to dispose of them quickly. Yeah, that's not happening, Danny scoffed, crossing his arms. I might not be a ghost right now, but I was still trained by Batman. For a week, Robin hissed through gritted teeth. And a few days tilde, Danny added matter-of-factly. They count too. Robin pinched the bridge of his nose and muttered to himself, was I this insufferable when I first started? How has Batman not gotten rid of me by now? Shaking his head to refocus, he turned back to Danny. Just stay put, Robin said slowly before leaping onto the crates at the sound of gunfire slowing down. In a swift motion, he threw 3 batarangs toward the shelves where most of the gunshots had originated. Beep beep beep, the batarangs emitted a rapid beeping before exploding, sending the shelves crashing down. Panicked shouts erupted as the men hiding behind the shelves scrambled. Those on the edges managed to dive out of the way, but one unfortunate man rolled too close to Robin, aiming his weapon in desperation. Robin kicked the gun aside, then kneed the man in the face. Without missing a beat, he grabbed another batarang and spun, hurling it at a second man across the room. The batarang embedded itself in the man's hand, drawing a scream as he dropped his weapon. Robin completed the motion with a backward kick, sending the first man flying into a wall with a loud crash. Danny peeked from behind the crates, watching with wide eyes. Awesome tilde, he thought, marveling as Robin shot his grappling hook at the leg of the second man, yanking him off his feet. As the man was pulled toward him, Robin delivered a powerful kick to his face, knocking him unconscious. Dodge, Danny shouted. Robin didn't hesitate, flipping out of the way just as a bullet whizzed past him. One of the men had crawled out from beneath the toppled shelves and taken aim. Without pause, Robin charged, dodging the frantic shots. He shoved the gun aside and unleashed a flurry of punches until the man slumped, unconscious. Breathing heavily, Robin turned. Thanks for the save. Danny didn't respond. Robin's gaze shifted to find Danny standing stiffly, hands raised toward the ceiling. A nervous-looking man had an arm wrapped tightly around Danny's neck, pressing a gun to his temple. A little conundrum I've found myself in, Danny said dryly. He snuck up behind me. Shut it, kid, the man barked. His grip tightened as he glanced nervously at Robin. If he's here, he growled, jerking his chin toward Robin, then Batman's gotta be close. You're my ticket out of this. Robin raised an eyebrow. You need help. Nah tilde, Danny replied nonchalantly. Before the man could react, Danny shoved the gun upward with one hand. The weapon discharged, the bullet burying itself harmlessly in the ceiling. At the same time, Danny drove his elbow into the man's gut, forcing a pained grunt as his grip loosened. In a fluid motion, Danny grabbed the man's arm, twisted it over his shoulder, and flipped him onto the ground with a thunderous thud. He followed up by snapping the man's wrist with a sharp, audible crack. The man screamed, dropping the gun, but Danny didn't give him a chance to recover. A swift strike rendered him unconscious. Robin blinked, slightly impressed. Not bad. Danny dusted off his hands, grinning. Told you, I've got this. Danny then shot Robin an incredulous look. Although, a bit of concern for my safety would have been appreciated. Instead, I got a simple, you need help. Robin smirked. Like you said, you've been trained by Batman, for a week and a few days, no less. You might as well already be an expert. There was no need for concern. Danny rolled his eyes and scoffed. Yeah, let's just go see if Batman needs help already. Robin nodded, though he silently doubted the possibility. With a flick of his wrist, he launched batarangs at the door, blowing it open. The two of them rushed out into the chaos. They had barely stepped into the open when a booming shout echoed through the building. Solomon Grundy, born on a Monday. A massive, gray-skinned figure burst through the second-floor door, railing creaking under the sheer force of his weight. Batman was on him, tackling him with everything he had. The two figures smashed through the railing, plummeting toward the ground below. Grundy growled, twisting in midair to pin Batman beneath him. His enormous arms locked around Batman like steel cables, intent on taking him down hard. I'm going ghost, Danny declared suddenly, twin white rings appearing around his waist. In an instant, he transformed into his ghost form, his legs dissolving into a wispy tail. With a burst of speed, 112 miles per hour, 180 kilometers per hour, to be exact, Danny shot toward the falling duo. The entire sequence played out in seconds. Danny zipped beneath the pair, taking hold of Batman's shoulders. Activating his intangibility, he phased himself and Batman right through Grundy's bulk. Boom! Grundy hit the ground face first with an earth-shaking impact. The floor cracked and splintered beneath his massive frame, chunks of debris scattering everywhere. Danny gently lowered Batman to the ground, his breathing labored from the exertion of transforming back and forth so quickly. "Stay focused," Batman ordered firmly, as Danny caught his breath. Grundy let out a low growl, already beginning to rise. He's not the type to go down after just one hit. Batman turned to both Danny and Robin. "Follow my lead." He stepped forward, raising a hand to Grundy. "Grundy, I don't want to hurt you. We're trying to help, but you have to let us." Grundy snarled in response, his red eyes blazing with fury. Danny leaned closer to Batman, whispering, "I think he's mad because you threw him off the second floor." "Not helping," Batman replied coldly, his focus unbroken. Grundy roared, charging toward them with reckless abandon. Batman braced himself, slipping on his brass knuckles as he fell into a fighting stance. "Get ready," Batman said, his voice low and steady. Grundy ignored both Danny and Robin, his red eyes locked on Batman as he charged. He swung a massive fist at Batman, who sidestepped gracefully and countered with a sharp uppercut to Grundy's jaw. Grundy roared and retaliated, swinging his enormous arms in chaotic arcs. Batman ducked, weaved, and moved fluidly, evading each wild strike. Danny, seizing an opportunity, fired a green ghost ray at the back of Grundy's knee. The beam hit its mark, forcing Grundy to drop to one knee with a growl of frustration. Robin was already in motion. He leapt onto Grundy's broad back, planting 2 electric shock discs into the brute's shoulders. The devices sparked and crackled as they discharged their energy, sending jolts of pain through Grundy's body. Grundy bellowed, thrashing violently in an attempt to shake Robin off. He reached back to grab him, but Robin flipped gracefully off his back before Grundy could make contact. Grundy spun around, swinging his massive fist in a wide arc, attempting to backhand anyone within range. "We need to pin him down," Batman barked. "I'll stall him," Danny said, stepping forward. "I can handle his strength. You two handle the pinning." Grundy roared again, slamming a fist toward Danny, who caught it with both hands. When Grundy swung his other fist, Danny intercepted it by breaking free one of his hands and catching it. The two were locked in a fierce stalemate, each trying to overpower the other. "Solomon Grundy," the monster growled, his strength pressing down on Danny. Yes, I know," Danny grunted through clenched teeth, his arms trembling as he held his ground. "You were born on a Monday." Meanwhile, Batman and Robin moved in perfect sync, firing their grappling hooks. Strong, reinforced cables wrapped around Grundy's arms, torso, and legs, tightening with every pull. "He needs one more push to go down," Robin shouted. "Leave it to me," Danny replied. He turned his hands intangible, slipping free of Grundy's grip. With a burst of speed, Danny flew upward, his fist glowing with an intense green energy. He clenched his other hand over it for support, channeling all his power into the strike. "It's time for the dead to lay to rest," Danny shouted, rocketing forward and delivering a devastating uppercut to Grundy's jaw. The force sent Grundy tumbling backward. As he hit the ground, Batman and Robin moved swiftly, anchoring the cables securely to the floor. Grundy roared and struggled, but the cables held firm. They had been reinforced to withstand immense pressure, and no matter how much Grundy flexed and thrashed, he couldn't break free. Finally, the massive figure lay immobilized, securely bound and unable to fight back. And just like that, Solomon Grundy was taken down. Chapter 13, Solomon Grundy End. Third person's POV. Batman, Robin, and Danny stood around the restrained Solomon Grundy, who lay strapped down on the cold floor of the factory. "So, how do we get him back to his hiding place?" Robin asked curiously. "Do we tie him to the Batmobile? Though that doesn't exactly seem ethical." "First, we interrogate him," Batman said with a small frown. "We need to figure out why he's here when he should be down in the sewers where he usually stays." "I could overshadow him and take him back down there," Danny suggested. "That should always be a last resort," Batman replied, giving Danny a warning look. "Don't rely too quickly on the easy way out. Taking control of someone's body isn't a solution to be used lightly. If there's another way to solve the problem, even if it takes a few extra steps, you should take it. Respect their will." Danny scratched the back of his head awkwardly and nodded. "I didn't mean anything bad by it. I was just offering an idea," he muttered. Batman didn't respond further. Instead, he turned his attention to Grundy, who was still struggling against the restraints. Kneeling beside him, Batman placed a firm hand on the zombie's chest. Grundy, listen to me, he said in a softer tone. We're here to help you. Talk to us. Why are you here? Why aren't you back home? Grundy let out savage grunts and guttural growls, though they gradually softened under Batman's steady gaze. Finally, the monster met Batman's eyes. Grundy's home, he rumbled slowly, his voice gravelly and broken. Destroyed. Batman's brow furrowed slightly. Grundy stopped struggling and continued, his tone mournful. Ceiling, rocks falling on Grundy. Grundy didn't want to be buried. Grundy ran out. Home, blocked by large rocks. A cave-in, Batman asked with concern. Robin frowned. Have there been any recent explosions that could have caused an underground collapse? We haven't dealt with any villains using large-scale explosives lately. As Batman and Robin pondered, Danny let out a heavy sigh, catching their attention. Batman's eyes narrowed slightly as he turned to Danny as he finally remembered. Closing his eyes, Danny admitted, there was an explosion recently, but it wasn't caused by a villain, it was caused by me. Robin's eyes widened in realization. The night of your transformation, it caused a strong seismic event. That must have been what caused Grundy's home to collapse. Danny nodded solemnly, his shoulders slumping as he released a shaky breath. Batman placed a hand on Danny's shoulder briefly before addressing both of them. You two double-check that all the men we've taken down are secured and ready for transport to police custody. Meanwhile, I'll stay here and convince Grundy to lead us to his home so we can assess the damage. Danny and Robin nodded. Robin fired a grappling hook, swinging around the factory, while Danny's legs transformed into a ghostly tail as he floated away. A few minutes later, they returned to find Batman cutting through Grundy's restraints with his batarangs. The hulking zombie slowly got to his feet. It isn't far from here, the police are already on the way, Batman explained. We can walk the distance. Turning to Grundy, Batman instructed, lead the way. Grundy let out a low growl and began to lumber forward, his heavy footsteps echoing. Batman and Robin followed closely, while Danny floated casually above the ground. After a few minutes, they stood before a massive entrance to the sewers, the archway towering even over Grundy. A thin stream of greenish water trickled across the ground. Robin grimaced, lifting his foot to avoid the foul liquid. You're lucky you can float, he muttered to Danny. Danny grinned and gave a sly wink, causing Robin to roll his eyes. Grundy lumbered ahead, leading them deeper into the expansive sewer system. After several turns, the group arrived at a section blocked by large rocks and boulders, with scattered pebbles littering the damp floor. Grundy's shoulders slumped as he stared at the blockage. Grundy's home, he said mournfully, his gravelly voice heavy with sadness. Floating closer, Danny gently patted Grundy's shoulder. Leave it to me, he said firmly. I caused this. It's my fault. Danny, Robin interrupted, but Danny shook his head. This is my responsibility, Danny said, his expression resolute. I created the explosion, and even if it was accidental, it took away his home. It's on me to make it right. From the shadows, Batman observed Danny with a subtle, approving nod. Anticipating further objections, Danny continued, I'll make most of the boulders intangible, move them out, and break them apart with my ghost rays. I've got this. Danny wasted no time, speeding around the area with supernatural strength and precision. The group watched as he phased the rocks free and floated them out, clearing the blockage bit by bit. Occasionally, he hurled the debris into the air and disintegrated it with concentrated ghostly energy. As he worked, the water in the sewers began flowing more freely, the blockage loosening with each boulder removed. Batman kept a watchful eye, noting the efficiency and dedication with which Danny worked. Nearly an hour later, Danny grasped the largest rock blocking the entrance. Turning intangible, he phased it out and flew a safe distance away. With a burst of ghost rays, he shattered the massive boulder into harmless dust, dodging the debris as it scattered. When he floated back, his movements were sluggish, his breathing heavy. Danny's eyes were half-lidded with exhaustion, and he wavered unsteadily in the air. Grundy's eyes lit up with excitement as he saw his old home once more. Though parts of the ceiling pipes and walls were damaged, the space was clear enough to be livable again. Grundy crouched to fit through the entrance, settled into a corner, and let out a deep sigh of relief. Batman placed a firm hand on Danny's shoulder. Good work, Danny Phantom. Danny managed a weak smile. Thanks. Robin clapped him roughly on the back. Yeah, nice job. A few more missions like this, and you might just be almost as good as me. Danny scoffed softly but was too drained to respond. Batman began leading them out, tapping a few buttons on his gauntlet. As Danny followed behind, he heard a low growl from Grundy. Thank you, Grundy said slowly. From Solomon Grundy, who was born on a Monday. Danny's eyes widened briefly before his smile softened. Turning back, he said, "Sure thing, big guy. Anytime, after all I'm a friend to both the living and the dead." When they emerged from the sewers, the Batmobile awaited them. Once they secured themselves inside, Batman started the drive back to the Batcave. Robin stretched in his seat with a yawn. Talk about a first night on patrol, huh, Danny? A sudden flash of light from the back seat drew their attention. Batman and Robin turned to see Danny, back in his human form, curled up and fast asleep. The two shared a quiet chuckle before turning their attention back to the road. Chapter 14, Signs of Abuse. Third person's POV. Date: January 31st. Location: Fenton Works, basement. Time: 2:24 am. Danny casually walked down to the basement, stifling a strong yawn, with the Fenton thermos clutched in his hand. He pointed the thermos toward the Ghost Zone portal and pressed the button, releasing the mischievous ghosts he had captured. A haunting wail echoed through the room as ghosts flew out from the thermos. Once the last one was expelled, Danny capped the thermos shut. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the portal. "I am the box ghost fear me," declared a short, round man with blue skin and short black hair. He wore gray overalls, a matching hat, light gray gloves, a light gray undershirt, and dark gray shoes. "What you're going to fear is me if you don't leave me alone. It's the middle of the night. I'm trying to go to bed," Danny snapped, kicking the box ghost in the face, sending him flying backward. Danny slapped the button on the side, closing the ghost portal, then turned intangible and flew away. In the Ghost Zone, the box ghost tumbled through the air, accidentally crashing into someone. "Oops, sorry, I mean fear me. For I am the box ghost," he declared, turning around and waving his arms in the air. A large hand covered his face, silencing him. He was held at arm's length by a ghost with electric green eyes, flaming green hair, a goatee, and jagged teeth. His off-white skin had metal seams, and he wore a black tank top, pants, a dark gray shoulder guard, and a dark gray belt slung across his chest. "What's with all these ghosts? What's going on?" the ghost asked, intrigued. The box ghost answers to no one. The box ghost mumbled through the hand. The larger ghost pulled him closer, threateningly. "Listen here, since it seems you have no idea who you're messing with. I am Skulker, the Ghost Zone's greatest hunter. If you don't want to be turned into a ghost rug beneath my feet, you'd better start talking." The box ghost shivered. "We were all captured by this ghost boy, he's becoming a legend around here. I went to teach him his place so he wouldn't think he was above the box ghost and fear me." Skulker tossed the box ghost aside and placed a hand on his chin. "A ghost boy hunting other ghosts, is he trying to upstage me?" Skulker huffed. "I'll teach him that no one is a better ghost hunter than Skulker." Date: February 1st. Location: Gotham Academy. Time: 11:45 am. Danny Fenton. Danny jolted awake, standing up with a piece of paper stuck to his face. "The Boston Tea Party," he exclaimed, still half asleep. The class burst into laughter. "Mr. Fenton, if you had bothered to stay awake in my class, you'd know we're in math, Mr. Lancer said, his voice stern but calm. The bell rang, saving Danny from further embarrassment as he peeled the paper off his face. As they say, saved by the bell once again, Mr. Fenton. "Try to stay awake next time, Mr. Lancer said coolly. "Sorry," Danny mumbled, as the class giggled at his expense. Two students, Sam and Tucker, didn't laugh, their faces etched with concern. Danny rubbed his eyes, packed his backpack, and lazily slung it over his shoulder. Sam and Tucker hurriedly followed him. "Dude, Danny, are you okay?" Tucker asked, raising an eyebrow. "You look a little worse for wear." "That's an understatement," Sam scoffed. "You look like you haven't slept in days." "I'm fine, you guys. Just stayed up a little late doing revisions," Danny yawned, struggling to open his locker, messing up the combination 3 times in a row due to his exhaustion. "Yeah, right," Sam said skeptically, snatching the combination lock from his hands and swiftly opening it for him. "Thanks," Danny said awkwardly, placing his books inside. He paused and narrowed his eyes suspiciously. "How did you know the number to my combination lock?" "I saw you mess up the order with the same 3 numbers, and don't try to change the subject," Sam replied reproachingly. "What's going on with you, Danny? This isn't the first time. You've been looking more and more tired. Are you sure you're all right?" Fine, you got me, I've been staying up all night playing video games, Danny admitted, a bit embarrassed. Ah, I totally understand Tilda, I'm the same way, Tucker said with a nod, patting Danny's back. It's the grind, isn't it? That intoxicating feeling of seeing your level rise and saying to yourself, just one more level, and the next thing you know, it's already morning. Sam still had a skeptical look, clearly not believing a word Danny just said. She grabbed his wrist, along with Tucker's, and began to drag them away. Danny let out a sigh. Sam, where are you taking us? Yeah, Sam, the lunchroom is the opposite way. You know, as they say, lunch is the most important meal of the day. Tucker whined. I thought it was breakfast. Danny asked, raising an eyebrow at Tucker. Danny, you should know me by now. Any time food is supposed to be in my mouth is an important meal of the day, Tucker said expertly. Danny chuckled as Sam kicked open a door to an empty stairwell. What are we doing here? Danny asked, looking around. Tucker and I are forming an intervention against you, Sam said, crossing her arms. We are? Tucker asked. Sam gave him a look, and he quickly corrected himself. I mean, we definitely are. An intervention about what exactly? Tucker asked, turning to Sam in confusion. Sam crossed her arms and glared at Danny. Danny, I want you to be completely honest with us, are you being abused? She asked, her tone quieter and sadder. What? Both Danny and Tucker exclaimed in disbelief. Are you? Tucker asked, turning to look at Danny, his nonchalant expression turning serious. Danny couldn't help but laugh slightly. PFF'd, no, I'm not being abused. You guys are being ridiculous. Why would you even think that? Because you're showing symptoms of someone being abused, obviously. You started wearing long sleeves. It's February, it's cold, Danny retorted. You show multiple signs of fatigue. I just can't fall asleep on time. Insomnia, she pointed out. That's due to my lack of time management. Can't blame that on anyone but myself, Danny continued. Tucker took out his PDA. I can help you with that. I can make you a tight schedule so you can get the 8 hours of sleep you need. For God's sake, Danny, you wince when someone touches you. Sam exclaimed, her eyes growing misty. It's Bruce Wayne, isn't it? It all began ever since you started staying with him. Sam, Bruce isn't. Before Danny had a chance to finish, Sam grabbed his shirt and lifted it over his head. Both Sam and Tucker gasped. Danny's body was covered in multiple bruises, some green and purple. Danny clicked his tongue in annoyance, tussling with Sam to lower his shirt. It's not what you guy. Danny froze as he saw tears streaming down Sam's face, while Tucker had a look of rage. Danny groaned and looked up at the ceiling. Lord, give me strength, he prayed. How was he supposed to explain he got all those bruises from training? To ordinary people, the intensity of his training could easily be mistaken for abuse, especially since it increases every time he had improved. Chapter 15, to Wayne Manor. Third person's POV. You guys, I'm not being abused, Danny said for the millionth time as he made his way to the lunchroom. Tucker and Sam stood protectively around him. We get it, Danny. You're scared, maybe too scared to admit it. After all, Bruce Wayne is a billionaire. He probably thinks he can get away with it just because he has a lot of money, Sam said, her voice soft and reassuring. Ah, can't he? Tucker asked warily. Like you said, he's a billionaire. He could probably buy his way out of this. He might be able to escape the judicial system, but he can't escape public outrage, Sam said fiercely. No, you're not taking this to the public. Danny said hurriedly. Oh, you don't want the public to know. All right, we'll keep it anonymous, Sam said, her expression serious. But Danny, the first step to escaping abuse is to speak up. You guys are driving me crazy. Danny exclaimed, looking up at the ceiling, though a faint smile tugged at the corners of his lips. He wanted to be mad at them for being so persistent, for jumping to conclusions. But he couldn't. They were worried about him, looking out for him. There was no way he could get mad at them for that. In fact, he was a little touched, though he'd never admit it. I have to put an end to this before it gets Bruce in trouble, Danny thought, searching for a solution. That's when he saw Dick sitting with a tray of food, talking to a red-haired girl. Dickie, oh my God, I'm so glad to see you, Danny exclaimed, running over to him, leaving Sam and Tucker behind. It was like seeing a lifeline. Dick looked at Danny with utter disgust. Don't you ever call me that again. The girl next to Dick gave Danny a weird look and chuckled. Dickie Tilda, she repeated. Dick already looked irritated. What do you want, Danny? Can we talk in private? Danny asked, glancing apologetically at the girl. She looked between them and shrugged. Don't mind me, I'll just be on my way then. Here, Dickie Tilda, I'll carry your tray to our table while you have your little chat. Don't you start, Barbara, Dick glared but handed the tray to her and thanked her. Huh, Danny inwardly exclaimed, struggling to maintain a nonchalant expression. As in Barbara Gordon, as in Batgirl, sweet Tilda. So, what is it? Dick asked, annoyed. Danny grabbed Dick and dragged him to the corner where his friends were waiting. They saw my bruises and think Bruce is abusing me. PFF'd, Dick almost laughed out loud but contained himself. Oh, this is going to be good Tilda, he muttered. When they arrived, Sam covered her mouth, looking tearful again. I forgot there are two of you. I'm glad you brought him, Danny. What? They both asked, looking at her weirdly. Now we have more proof. It's not just you, is it? You've been with that monster the longest. Just how much have you suffered at his hands? Dick glanced at Danny, his eyes simply asking, what is wrong with her? Danny and I aren't getting abused. The reason for his bruises is, Dick began, already concocting a plausible excuse. You don't have to cover for him, you know, Sam interjected. Dick looked at Danny, then at Sam and Tucker, and back at Danny. You're on your own, he said, turning around and walking away. Wah, help me out here, Danny pleaded. This is too much fun to intervene in. Enjoy yourself, Dick said, waving him off. Dick, Danny called out. Dick looked back at Danny in confusion. I wasn't calling your name, Danny scoffed with a pout. That's why I'm going to ignore you now, Dick said with a scoff of his own, continuing to walk away. Tucker watched the interaction with a raised eyebrow, his suspicions of abuse decreasing slightly. Suddenly, an idea struck him. I got it. Both Danny and Sam looked at Tucker as he began to explain, we'll come over and see for ourselves. Good idea. Terrible idea, both Sam and Danny said simultaneously. Sam and Tucker gave Danny a weird look at his objection. Danny's shoulders slumped. You guys aren't going to drop this, are you? They both shook their heads in unison. Danny tilted his head side to side, considering his options, and sighed. If I tell them they can't come, it would only make them more worried and suspicious, not to mention they might do something drastic. Fine, but I need to ask permission first, Danny said awkwardly. No, that would defeat the purpose. He would just prepare a nice guy routine like he shows the public. We need to take him by surprise in the comfort of his own home, Sam nodded sagely. There are so many flaws in what you just said, I don't even know where to begin, Danny said, shaking his head. Anyways, I'm starving. I don't want to waste our lunch period. Sam and Tucker agreed. As Sam walked ahead, Danny leaned toward Tucker and asked, you just want to see what a billionaire's house looks like, don't you? Was I that obvious? Tucker asked, a bit embarrassed, rubbing the back of his head with a goofy smile. Danny looked at him in amusement. Tucker's smile slowly dropped as he looked toward Danny and asked in a low voice, Danny, be honest with me, are you really getting abused? His tone was serious, meant only for Danny to hear. Danny closed his eyes and shook his head. You're not lying to us or anything, right? Danny smiled and shook his head again. All right, I'll believe you if you're so adamant about it. Although, Sam is going to be a lot harder to convince, Tucker said, exasperated. Don't I know it? Danny replied in an equally low tone. After school, Danny stood outside the front gates with Sam and Tucker. Sam held Danny protectively, glaring at Alfred. Alfred, looking confused, turned to Danny for an explanation. Danny mouthed the words, she thinks Bruce is abusing me. A look of comprehension dawned on Alfred, and he straightened up. Young Master Daniel, I take it these are the friends you've told us about. Yup, Danny confirmed and introduced them to each other. Now that the pleasantries are out of the way, I take it you all will be joining us for lunch. Alfred asked expertly, in the manner of a distinguished butler. Yes, but don't tell, Master Tilda, Sam said, dragging out the word with a mischievous grin. I'm afraid I can't do that. It would be a failure of my duties as a butler, Alfred replied, his tone polite but firm. However, you have nothing to worry about, as Master Bruce is currently away on a business trip, he added slowly. League business, got it, Danny thought, nodding in understanding. Oh, Sam muttered, that definitely puts a wrench in our plan. You are all still welcome to come. I'm sure young Master Daniel would enjoy your company, Alfred said, still inviting them with a warm smile. Sam and Tucker exchanged glances and nodded. I'm in. Thanks for the ride, Mr. Pennyworth, Tucker said, hopping inside and settling in front of Dick, who was waiting inside. I suppose it couldn't hurt. I do need to see your living conditions, after all, Sam said, her tone a mix of concern and determination. Thanks, Mom, Danny scoffed as they entered the limo. Sam blushed slightly. I'm just worried about you, that's all right. I'm not denying that, and I appreciate it, but you can definitely be a bit excessive, Danny said with a smile as they got inside. Just precautionary measures, as I like to call them. I'd rather have you annoyed with me and know you're safe and taken care of, Sam said, lifting her head proudly. Oh, so you do know you're being annoying, ow. Danny exclaimed, rubbing his forearm after Sam punched it. Alfred smiled softly at their interaction, then calmly walked to the driver's seat of the limo, starting the drive back to Wayne Manor.